Chapter 85. It was a night of revelry. Xiao Chun was naturally the star of the night. However, Xiao Chun did not really like this kind of occasion. Although the wine was good, to Xiao Chun, if 4 or 5 of his friends drank together, it would indeed be very happy. However, if there were too many people, it would seem a little dull. Because of this, Xiao Chun only dealt with them for a while before returning to his own dustless residence. Afterwards, Mo, Jia, Qin Heng, Qi Yin, and the rest of his friends also came to the dustless residence. Everyone began to drink here. They were all his few good friends. Drinking with them was obviously much more comfortable. There were no false pleasantries. Moreover, no one would change because of Xiao Chen's current status. This was what Xiao Chun liked the most. During this time, Xiao Chun also asked Qin Heng to inquire about Chun Ling. Qin Heng naturally would not refuse and agreed to arrange for a core disciple to go to the Blood Demon Hall tomorrow. While the East Sword Pavilion was celebrating, the geniuses of the Central Divine Realm did not participate in the 4 Regions Prodigy Tournament this time. Therefore, they were not convinced of Xiao Chen's strength. Of course, it was not only them. Goulet and the other 2 were the same. Time passed day by day. After 3 days, the Central Divine Realm did indeed send rewards. There were various kinds of cultivation resources. Moreover, the 7 overlords did not just reward Xiao Chen this time. They also rewarded the East Sword Pavilion with many good things. With these things, the overall strength of the East Sword Pavilion would probably surpass the other 4 overlords very soon. And all of this was brought to them by Xiao Chun. Because of Xiao Chun, the East Sword Pavilion had received many benefits. As a result, Xiao Chen's position in the East Sword Pavilion had become even higher. When ordinary elders saw Xiao Chun, they were respectful and reverent. Even the 10 core elders treated Xiao Chun as if they were equals. They did not dare to slight him in the slightest. The entire East Sword Pavilion was thriving, and today, Qin Heng had also found Xiao Chun. Through his investigation, it was as if Chun Ling had disappeared from the face of the earth, and there was no news at all. They had already gone to the Blood Demon Palace to inquire, but Chun Ling had not returned. Now, the people from the Blood Demon Palace were also searching for Chun Ling's whereabouts. Chun Ling had disappeared. Regarding this, Xiao Chun said somewhat worriedly, "Chun Ling, where did you go?" It was certain that Chun Ling did not die in the 100 Spirits Graveyard. If Chun Ling had really died in the 100 Spirits Graveyard, then his corpse would have been sent out. However, no one had seen Chun Ling's corpse. So where did he go? For a while, Xiao Chun was at a loss. After that, Qin Heng told Xiao Chun another piece of news, which was that the Central Divine Realm was about to hold the Battle of Geniuses. In the previous 4 regions' Heaven's Chosen Battle, only the Heavens chosen from the Eastern Sun Domain, Northern Peak Domain, West Sea Domain, and South Wind Domain had participated. The Heavens chosen from the Central Divine Region did not appear. Now, the 7 great rulers had gathered the Heavens chosen from the Central Divine Region to hold the second Heavens Chosen Battle. When this news was released, it naturally attracted the attention of everyone in the Heavenly Chun continent. The Central Divine Region was the center of the Heavenly Chun continent, and it was also the place that all warriors yearned for. Everyone knew that the Central Divine Region had far more experts than the other 4 regions combined. At the same time, the number of publicly recognized Heavens chosen in the Central Divine Region also far exceeded the total number of Heavens chosen from the other 4 regions. There were a total of 30 top Heavens chosen in the Central Divine Region. Not only was the Central Divine Region vast, but martial arts were also prevalent. Compared to the Central Divine Region, the other 4 regions were barbarians. Therefore, the upcoming Heavens Chosen Battle in the Central Divine Region naturally attracted everyone's attention. Hearing about the Heavens Chosen Battle in the Central Divine Region, Xiao Chun wasn't too interested because it had nothing to do with him. It was a matter of the Central Divine Region. After a moment of silence, Xiao Chun couldn't find any news about Chun Ling. Then, he asked about Qin Shiru. "Senior brother, do you know what happened to Shui Rou? Mu Qing has already come to propose marriage. The wedding has been confirmed to be in half a month." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Heng didn't hide anything. Mu Qing actually dared to take the initiative to propose marriage. After hearing Qin Heng's answer, a cold glint flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. It seems that the lesson I taught you in the 100 Spirits graveyard wasn't enough. He had already given Mu Qing a chance, but he insisted on courting death. He couldn't blame anyone else. With a cold glint in his eyes, Xiao Chan decided that in half a month, he would personally go to the Qin family and snatch Qin Shura back in front of Mu Qing. Qin Heng looked at Xiao Chan with a complicated gaze. He knew what he was going to do, but he couldn't say anything to stop him. Mu Qing was from the Mu family, and the Mu family was one of the 7 overlords of the heavenly Qin continent. The patriarch of the Mu family was one of the 7 overlords. Offending the Mu family was obviously not a wise thing to do. However, as Qin Shuru's brother, Qin Heng naturally didn't want to see Qin Shuru marry someone he didn't like. Therefore, Qin Heng was caught in a dilemma. He wanted to persuade Xiao Chun not to offend the Mu family, but he couldn't find a reason to do so, because Xiao Chun was doing this for his sister. There was still half a month before Qin Shuru's wedding. However, in Xiao Chen's heart, the wedding in half a month didn't belong to Mu Qing. It belonged to him and Qin Shuru. That's right, in half a month, Xiao Chan was going to marry Qin Shuru. With a decision in his heart, Xiao Chan decided to take advantage of the remaining half a month to go home. Riding on the green feather eagle, Xiao Chen returned to Lingshan Prefecture City on the same day. Seeing that Xiao Chan had returned, Xiao Qing and Bai Ruyue were naturally overjoyed. They also knew about the 4 regions' heavenly prides battle and that their son was now the leader of the 4 great prides. However, no matter how high Xiao Chen's achievements were, he was still their son. He told his parents about the incident with Qin Shuru. When they heard that Xiao Chan wanted to snatch the bride, not only did Bai Ruyuan not stop him, she even raised both hands in approval. Chen you did the right thing. How can you give away your own woman? Since you like her, you should fight for her. Don't worry, mother will support you. When the time comes, your father and I will accompany you to the Qin family. Since you're going to get married, we naturally have to be there. In the courtyard, Bai Ruyue held Xiao Chen's hand and said. Hearing this, Xiao Qing felt a little helpless. Was there still a mother in this world who supported her son, snatching the bride? Although he felt a little helpless, Xiao Qing didn't stop him. After all, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru were in love with each other. Since the lady liked him, as a man, how could he shrink back? The couple didn't stop Xiao Chun. Moreover, half a month later, the 2 of them accompanied Xiao Chun to the Qin family. Regarding this, Xiao Chun didn't refuse. After deciding to leave in 10 days, Xiao Chun didn't plan to return to the East Sword Pavilion and simply stayed at home. Regarding this, Bai Ruyue was overjoyed. It was rare that Xiao Chun could stay at home for such a long time. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 86. Staying at home. Xiao Chun didn't become arrogant because he was the leader of the 4 prides. He understood that if one didn't advance on the martial path, they would fall behind. A complacent and lazy person would never be able to reach the peak of the martial path. Thinking back to the time when he had entered the mystical state of being one with the sword, he had the heavenly Tao sword embryo. As long as the heavenly Tao sword embryo transformed into a lifeblood divine sword, he would naturally enter the state of being one with the sword once the divine sword appeared. However, this could only be done after the heavenly Tao sword embryo completed its transformation. Before that, Xiao Chan could only rely on himself to comprehend the state of one with the sword. What was one with the sword? In layman terms, the man was the sword, and the sword was the man. The sword moved according to the heart, and the sword pointed where the heart pointed. Of course, this was only a layman's explanation of one with the sword. Everyone had a different understanding of what one with the sword was. Comprehending the profundity of one with the sword, if he could master one with the sword, his strength would greatly increase. He was completely immersed in the cultivation of one with the sword. At the same time, the Central Divine Region's Prodigy Battle began. It wasn't as troublesome as the 4 Regions Prodigy Battle. The previous rounds were abandoned and the Prodigy 18 Peaks began. Of course, this time it was the 30 peaks. The 30 prodigies of the Central Divine region would compete. The rules were the same as the 4 regions prodigy battle. However, there were 6 prodigy king peaks instead of 4. The Central Divine region's prodigy battle lasted for 8 days before it finally ended. In the end, the 6 prodigy kings of the Central Divine region appeared. Like Shao Chun and the other 3, the 6 of them appeared in the sky of the heavenly Chun continent, allowing the world to clearly see their appearances. At the same time, as the number 1 prodigy king of the Central Divine region, he received the same treatment as Shao Chun. His statue was allowed to enter the prodigy palace, and he also received an Earth-grade artifact from the Myriad Weapons Sovereign. It was worth mentioning that the number 1 prodigy king of the Central Divine region was named Gudu Wuya. Like Shao Chun, he was also a sword cultivator. Although they were both sword cultivators, one was the leader of the 4 regions prodigy kings. The other was the leader of the Central Divine region's prodigy kings. Both of them entered the prodigy palace, suppressing the other 8 prodigy kings. Under the control of the 7 juggernauts, the numerous prodigies who had appeared out of nowhere because of the Golden Age were divided into 3 classes. Then the 7 juggernauts released the prodigy ranking at the same time, clearly defining the 3 classes of prodigies. As for the 10 prodigy kings who reached the 10 prodigy kings peaks, they were called the prodigy kings. The prodigy kings were divided into 3 levels. Of course, Chunling was not included because he had disappeared and there was no news of him. While it seemed like there were only 3 levels, everyone knew that there was a 4th level, which belonged to Shao Chun and Gudu Wuya, both of whom were among the top 10 prides. Both of them vaguely showed signs of overpowering the other 8 prides, making them the 4th level. No one knew why the 7 sovereigns would divide the prodigy kings into different levels. But to the people of the heavenly Chun continent, it was indeed a topic of conversation. The 2 rounds of the prodigy battles were over. At the top of the mountain in the Central Divine region, there were clouds and mist. It was like a fairyland. A young man with a light blue sword stood proudly at the top of the mountain, looking down at the rolling sea of clouds. Next to him was a young girl in a white dress. She had a blissful smile on her face. "Senior brother, people are comparing you to Shao Chun. They have no foresight. How could Shao Chun be qualified to be compared to senior brother?" The young girl seemed to be fighting for justice for the young man. She pouted as she spoke. She looked very cute. When the young man heard her, he smiled and said, "Shao Chun is indeed extraordinary. He and I both passed the test of the ruler's godly thunder of the continent of the 9 clouds. I also used all my strength to pass. Since he passed, it proves his strength. I've also heard that he can fuse with his sword. I really want to meet him." Unlike the young girl, the young man seemed to be very interested in Shao Chun. If one knew the young man's identity, one would understand why he cared so much about Shao Chun. Because he was Gudu Wuya, the number 1 prodigy king of the Central Divine region, who was constantly being compared to Shao Chun. Gudu Wuya didn't have any intention of looking down on Shao Chun. He even hoped that Shao Chun would become stronger. Very few people knew about Gudu Wuya's past. Originally, he wasn't called Gudu Wuya. He had changed his name when he was 16. From a young age, Gudu Wuya had displayed unparalleled talent. No one in his generation could compete with him. Therefore, he had changed his name to Gudu Wuya. Just like Shao Chun, he was 19 years old. Gudu Wuya had always been looking for someone who could compete with him. He had thought that the geniuses of the Central Divine region would be able to give him a good fight. Unfortunately, Gudu Wuya was disappointed. Even geniuses of his generation couldn't give him a good fight. Gudu Wuya looked at the sky and said indifferently, "Shao Chun, can you give me the fight I've always wanted?" Upon hearing Gudu Wuya's words, the girl beside him nestled in his arms and said, "Senior brother, since you want to meet Shao Chun so much, why don't we go to the Eastern Sun region?" "No, I'll wait for him to come to the Central Divine region. This is our stage. The Eastern Sun region is too small," Gudu Wuya replied. Gudu Wuya was looking forward to meeting Shao Chun for the first time. On the other side, Shao Chun, who was in Lingshan Commandery City, looked at Mo Jie helplessly and said with a bitter smile, You came all the way from the Sword Pavilion just to tell me this? Of course. This is an important matter. Naturally, I have to tell you in person. Mo Jie replied. Mo Jie had come all the way from the Eastern Sword Pavilion to Lingshan Commandery City just to tell Xiao Chun that someone had proposed to separate Xiao Chun and Gudu Wuya from the 10 great geniuses. They would be the 4th level of the heavenly Chan continent's geniuses and be given the title of strongest geniuses. Just for this matter, Mo Jie had come all the way to Lingshan Commandery City. Looking at Mo Jie's excited face, Xiao Chun shook his head and smiled bitterly. This guy is really, please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 87. Xiao Chun smiled helplessly at Mo Jie. He really didn't know what to say to him. Mo Jie had actually rushed all the way from the East Sword Pavilion to Lingshan City for such a small matter. Xiao Chun didn't know about the outside world discussions about him and Gudu Wuya. However, even if he knew, Xiao Chun would probably just laugh it off. The title of the strongest heaven's pride seemed mighty and domineering, but one also needed to have the corresponding strength to back it up. Without strength, it was just a joke. Just like now. Although he didn't deliberately ask around, he could guess that many people in the central divine realm were probably jealous of him, the number 1 heaven's pride of the 4 regions. After all, in their eyes, the 4 regions were just uncivilized places. Even if Xiao Chun claimed to be the king here, so what? Moreover, Xiao Chun had surpassed them and was directly on par with Gudu Wuya. This naturally caused the other heaven's prides to be dissatisfied. Moreover, it wasn't just the heaven's prides of the central divine realm. Goulet and the other 2 were probably not convinced of him. If they met again in the future, it was inevitable that there would be a fight. At that time, if he didn't have enough strength, wouldn't he become the laughingstock of the 4 of them? Therefore, Xiao Chun had never deliberately pursued the title of the strongest heaven's pride. This was because Xiao Chun understood that when one's strength reached a certain level, one would naturally obtain these things. However, if one deliberately pursued these things without strength, in the end, it would just be playing to the gallery. Xiao Chun smiled and patted Mo Jie's shoulder. Since you're here, stay. Tomorrow, we'll go to the Qin residence together. Since Mo Jie was already here, he might as well let him follow him to the Qin residence. After hearing Xiao Chun's words, Mo Jie agreed without hesitation. After a silent night, early the next morning, Xiao Chun, Mo Jie, Little Qing, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruyue, for people and one beast, left Lingshan City on a green eagle and rushed towards the Qin residence. While Xiao Chun and the others were rushing to the Qin clan, Qin Shu, who was wearing a long green dress, was sitting alone in the garden of the Qin clan in the Luoyang city. Compared to before, Qin Shu's temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. It was unknown whether it was due to the activation of the Yin spirit body. If Qin Shu could only be regarded as an ordinary beauty before, then Qin Shu's appearance was now enough to be called a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Her entire appearance and temperament had changed too much. She was like an iceberg, keeping people thousands of miles away. Her beautiful appearance gave people a feeling that they could only admire her from afar and not touch her. Qin Shu sat alone in the garden. Ever since he had parted with Xiao Chun, he had returned home. He knew that Mu Qing had formally proposed to his father and that his father had agreed. Regarding this, Qin Shu had no room to refuse. He knew that his father wanted to use Mu Qing to strengthen the Qin clan and let the Qin clan return to its homeland. The Qin clan was not originally from the Eastern Sun region. Hundreds of years ago, the Qin clan was actually a large clan in the Central Divine region. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances, the entire clan was almost wiped out. In the end, only a small number of people managed to escape. Later on, the Qin clan moved to the Eastern Sun region and formed the current Qin clan in Cloudfall City. Qin Shu's father's lifelong wish was to lead the Qin clan back to the Central Divine region and restore the Qin clan to its former glory. It was precisely because of this obsession in his heart that Qin Shu's father agreed to Mu Qing's marriage proposal. He wanted to borrow the strength of the Mu clan to bring the Qin clan back to the central divine region. Qin Shiru stared blankly at the dagger in his hand. He had already made up his mind. If his father insisted on marrying Mu Qing, then he would commit suicide on the day of the wedding. He would rather die than marry Mu Qing. He had already made up his mind. His eyes were blank as he spoke indifferently. Junior brother, Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun was the first person Qin Shiru had ever loved in his life. At the same time, he was also the only person. In this lifetime, Qin Shiru would only marry Xiao Chun. He had never thought that Xiao Chun would come, nor did he know that Xiao Chun was now the leader of the Four Prided Kings. No one told Qin Shiru about this. Since he had been under house arrest, Qin Shiru clearly had no contact with outsiders. Naturally, he did not know what was happening in the outside world. The day quickly passed. The next morning, as the sun rose, the Qin clan became lively. Today was the day of Qin Shiru and Mu Qing's wedding. Early in the morning, Qin Shiru began to dress up with the help of 4 maids. In the main hall of the Qin clan, Mu Qing, who was dressed in a red robe, was chatting with Qin Shiru's father as they waited for the auspicious time to arrive. Qin Shiru's father looked worriedly at Mu Qing and said, "Nephew, I'm a little worried about Xiao Chun from the East Sword Pavilion. Do you think he will come and cause trouble?" His name was Qin Lai. Hearing Qin Lai's words, Mu Qing smiled and said, "So what if he comes? Does the East Sword Pavilion really dare to start a war with my myriad immortal tower? Moreover, I believe that the upper echelons of the East Sword Pavilion are not fools. They won't go to war over a woman." This time, Mu Qing had obtained the full support of the upper echelons of the myriad immortal tower to marry Qin Shiru. Therefore, he was not afraid of Xiao Chun coming to cause trouble. In Mu Qing's opinion, the East Sword Pavilion would not become enemies with the myriad immortal tower over a woman like Qin Shiru. Hearing Mu Qing's words, Qin Lai nodded slightly. However, the worry in his eyes did not lessen. In his opinion, Mu Qing had thought of everything too well. Mu Qing did not notice the change in Qin Lai's expression. At this moment, he was immersed in the joy of the wedding. Of course, his joy was not because he truly loved Qin Shiru, but because of Yin's spirit body. As long as he could obtain Qin Shiru's virginity, Mu Qing would be able to obtain great benefits. At that time, even if Xiao Chun was one of the top 10 prides of Tianjin, so what? Mu Qing would still be able to defeat him with his own hands. He was still thinking about Qin Shiru's virginity. However, if Mu Qing knew that Qin Shiru had already given his virginity to Xiao Chun, who knew what kind of expression he would have? "Xiao Chun, I will definitely get back at you for the humiliation you gave me in the 100 Spirits graveyard. Moreover, this day will not be long." Mu Qing thought to himself. Even now, he was still fantasizing about finding Xiao Chun for revenge. He was still thinking about Qin Shiru's virginity. At the same time, as time passed, many invited guests arrived one after another. On one side was the largest family in the Falling Cloud City, and on the other side was one of the 5 giants of the Eastern Sun region. Under such circumstances, there were naturally many people who came to attend the wedding. First of all the major families of the Falling Cloud City came to visit. At the same time, the giants like the Leshan Prefecture, Fire Cloud Sect, and Blood Demon Hall also sent people to attend. Among them, the true dragons of the Leshan Prefecture and Fire Cloud Sect, Lin Xing and Zhao Weiyun, were also present. It was extremely lively. Moreover, the identities of the people who came were incomparably prominent. Apart from the Eastern Sword Pavilion, the other 4 giants of the Eastern Sun region were all present. However, while they were celebrating, everyone had their own thoughts. Many brothers in the book review section are asking about the update time. Here is a unified reply. I guarantee at least 3 updates a day. These 3 updates will not be lacking. The update time is 12 noon for PM and 8 p.m. Brothers, there will definitely be an update when the time comes. In addition, this is a new book. Please bookmark it, recommend it, and reward it. Also, brothers who want to join the book group can add it. Group number 579603753. Chapter 88. Guests were arriving unceasingly. At this moment, Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun were sitting on a bench in the hall. They were drinking wine while looking at the endless stream of people. It's really lively. Almost all the influential people in the Eastern Sun region are here, Zhao Wuyun said with a chuckle after taking a sip of wine. Hearing Zhao Wuyun's words, Lin Xing smiled and said, "Don't be anxious. The real main character has yet to appear. Little brother, do you think Xiaochen will really come?" Lin Wan'er, who was sitting beside Lin Xing, asked curiously. "My good sister, don't worry. He will definitely come." Lin Xing smiled helplessly as Lin Wan had asked this question many times along the way. Lin Wan'er was very interested in Xiaochen. She had an indescribable feeling whenever she thought of this little brother who had stayed in the deathmatch arena for half a year. Was it curiosity or something else? In short, Lin Wan'er really wanted to see Xiaochen. She wanted to see this little brother who was now one of the top 10 prides of Tianqin. Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun were sure that Xiaochen would definitely come. That was why the 10,000 Immortals House and Fire Cloud sect hadn't sent any congratulatory gifts. Not only them, but the people from the Blood Demon Palace also didn't send any congratulatory gifts. Mu Qing naturally knew what they were thinking. They were definitely waiting for Xiaochen to come. A cold glint flashed in her eyes as she cursed inwardly. "A bunch of idiots. Wait until I obtain the Yin's spirit body. I will definitely make you regret it. Lin Xing, Zhao Wuyun, just you wait." Mu Qing was very dissatisfied with the actions of the three giants, but she couldn't do anything now. She could only force a smile. The guests who came to congratulate finally arrived at dusk. The entire main hall and courtyard of the Qin residence were filled with people. Among them, the people sitting in the main hall were the people from the Qin family and the four giants. The auspicious hour had arrived. Qin Shiru, who was wearing a long red dress with a phoenix coronet and a veil covering her face, slowly walked into the hall accompanied by four maids. Everyone shifted their attention to Qin Shiru. Mu Qing strode to Qin Shiru and pretended to be gentle. "Shuero." Qin Shiru ignored Mu Qing. He walked up to his father and asked coldly, "Father, do you really want me to marry Mu Qing?" Qin Shiru actually asked such a question in front of everyone. For a moment, everyone fell silent. Qin Lai growled angrily, "Shut up. Marriage is decided by your parents. I'm your father. You'll marry whoever I want you to." After berating Qin Shiru in a low voice, Qin Lai immediately gave the order to start the ceremony to prevent any undue delay. Qin Lai was determined to marry Qin Shiru to Mu Qing. After receiving Qin Lai's final answer, Qin Shiru's beautiful face that was hidden in the veil revealed a determined look. Her right hand, which was hidden in her robe, clenched tightly onto the dagger that she had prepared earlier. Mountains without edges, rivers dry up, thunder rumbles in winter, snow falls in summer, and heaven and earth unite. Only then will I be separated from you. Junior brother Xiaochen, I hope that I can always be by your side in the next life. Qin Shiru murmured softly. As soon as she finished her sentence, the dagger in her hand glinted in a chilling light. Everyone witnessed the sharp dagger piercing towards Qin Shiru's heart. She's committing suicide. The bride is actually committing suicide on her wedding day. Upon witnessing Qin Shiru's actions, everyone's expression changed. Qin Lai bellowed furiously. "What are you trying to do? You unfilial daughter. Stop right there." Qin Shiru actually committed suicide at this moment, which was simply a disgrace to him. However, Qin Shiru acted as though she didn't hear her father's bellow. She continued to stab the dagger in her hand towards her heart. Just as the beauty was about to die, everyone saw a black shadow flash past the entrance of the Qin clan. Then, a handsome young man in white appeared behind Qin Shiru and grabbed her wrist. At the same time, he spoke with a faint smile on his face. "My dear senior sister, what am I going to do if you die?" The young man was none other than Xiaochen. He managed to make it at the last moment. Upon hearing Xiaochen's words, Qin Shiru's body trembled. The dagger in her hand fell to the ground unconsciously, and tears flowed out of her eyes uncontrollably. He didn't expect Xiaochen to really come. In the past, Qin Shiru had fantasized more than once that Xiao Chun would descend from the sky like a deity and take him away in front of everyone. However, this was only a fantasy. First of all, Qin Shiru didn't know if Xiao Chun really liked him. Secondly, if Xiao Chun wanted to take him away, it would be tantamount to becoming enemies with the entire Myriad Immortals Tower. Even if Xiao Chun was willing, would the East Sword Pavilion agree? The fantasy of the past had now become reality. In front of everyone, Xiao Chun held Qin Shiru's little hand without any scruples and said in a playful tone, "Senior sister, you're not kind. You secretly drugged me, took my virginity, and left without saying a word. Do you know how sad I am?" However, Qin Shiru's face flushed red when she heard this. She recalled what happened that night and felt shy in her heart. He lowered his head and didn't know what to say. After hearing her words, the expressions of the people around them became much more interesting. Virginity? What did she mean? Could it be that Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru were already? None of the people present were fools. Based on Xiao Chen's words, they all guessed something. After hearing her words, Mu Qing's face turned ashen. Virginity? How could it be? In that case, Qin Shiru was no longer a virgin. She had already given her virginity to Xiao Chun. Mu Qing was stunned for a moment. When she came back to her senses, she glared at Qin Shiru and shouted angrily, "You bitch! I thought you were so pure and innocent. I didn't expect you to be a promiscuous bitch. I'm going to kill you." Mu Qing had been looking forward to the Yin spirit body for years. Just when she was about to get what she wanted, she was told that Xiao Chun beat her to it. How could Mu Qing not be furious? Xiao Chen's words were like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in Mu Qing's ears. Mu Qing had already lost his mind. He roared and rushed towards Qin Shiru. However, just as he arrived in front of Qin Shiru, Xiao Chun appeared in front of Mu Qing in a flash. With a smack, 5 bright red fingerprints were left on Mu Qing's face. "It seems that the lesson I taught you in the 100 Spirits graveyard wasn't enough. I remember telling you that Qin Shiru is my woman, but you didn't listen. Now, I'm giving you one last chance. Either you get lost, or I'll send you away." Xiao Chun said indifferently after giving Mu Qing a slap. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 89. Mu Qing did not take Xiao Chun seriously at all. Facing Xiao Chun, Mu Qing roared with a ferocious expression. "Xiao Chun, I'm going to kill you." Mu Qing had suffered defeat after defeat in Xiao Chen's hands. Now, even the Yin spirit body that Mu Qing yearned for had been taken by Xiao Chun, so one could imagine the fury in Mu Qing's heart. Spiritual energy surged around Mu Qing's body. Without any hesitation, Mu Qing launched a punch. Seeing this, Xiao Chun carried Qin Shiru by the waist and flashed to Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun's side. "Can the two of you help me take care of my senior sister? Don't worry. If your senior sister loses a single strand of hair, you can come and find me." Lin Xing replied with a smile after handing Qin Shiru over to Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun. After settling Qin Shiru, Xiao Chun turned to look at Mu Qing. At this moment, Mu Qing attacked. He unsheathed his scarlet-edged sword and slashed out. Wherever the sword passed, a deep crack was split open on the ground. Seeing this, Mu Qing pushed out both his palms in an attempt to block Xiao Chen's sword. However, with just a single contact, Mu Qing was pushed back dozens of meters and landed in the main courtyard. At the same time, blood dripped from his palms. A single slash injured Mu Qing, as expected of a top-tier Earth-level sword. Its power was simply much stronger than the Qingyan sword. Holding the scarlet-edged sword, Xiao Chun slowly walked out of the main hall and arrived at the main courtyard. He looked at Mu Qing and said indifferently, "Do you want to scram yourself? Or do you want me to send you off?" Xiao Chun. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Mu Qing shouted coldly and attacked again. He was so angry that he didn't care if he was Xiao Chen's opponent anymore. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, the surrounding people retreated and gave them space. However, in Xiao Chen's eyes, Mu Qing's attacks were simply laughable. Back then, he was able to defeat Mu Qing with a single sword strike. Now, there was no need to even talk about it. Moreover, he had the Scarlet Edge sword, a top-tier Earth-class sword. With a slash of his sword, he executed the golden kill swordplay. It was as though he had returned to the 100 Spirits graveyard. The sky was filled with flickering sword shadows. When the sword shadows disappeared, Mu Qing was once again heavily injured. Xiao Chun defeated the enemy with a single slash. She knelt on the ground, covered in blood, and looked down at the heavily injured Murin. Don't challenge my patience again. Don't think that I don't dare to kill you. Scram. After saying that, Xiao Chun turned around and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, the Myriad Immortal Tower's house master, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. Xiao Chun, aren't you looking down on my Myriad Immortal Tower by causing a ruckus at my disciple's wedding? As the house master of the Myriad Immortal Tower and Mu Qing's master, he hadn't interfered before. Now that he spoke, Xiao Chun looked at him and said, "Why? Does your Myriad Immortal Tower want to get involved in this mess? Mu Qing is my disciple. Today is his wedding, yet you humiliated him like this. Do you think my Myriad Immortal Tower will sit by and do nothing?" said the house master. As his voice faded, a total of 12 figures appeared in the sky. These 12 people were the top fighting force of the Myriad Immortal Tower. They were equivalent to the core elders of the Eastern Sword Pavilion and Tsang Xian's trio. Their cultivation had surpassed the Heaven Realm. Including the house master, there were a total of 13 experts of the Myriad Immortal Tower whose cultivation had surpassed the Heaven Realm gathered here. It was obvious that the Myriad Immortal Tower had long prepared for this. They had already made preparations for Xiao Chen's appearance. Therefore, the experts of the Myriad Immortal Tower had been hiding in the dark to control the situation and allow the wedding to proceed smoothly. The house master didn't directly attack. He slowly got up and took a step forward. His figure instantly appeared in front of Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun naturally felt great pressure in the face of a Dao confirmation expert who was at the same level as Tsang Xian. However, he didn't change his expression in the slightest. Their eyes met, and the house master finally spoke. "I'll also give you a chance. Leave, or don't blame me for being impolite. I already expected this. If it weren't for the Myriad Immortal Tower support, how would this trash dare to ignore my warning? Let me guess. Perhaps you think that the Eastern Sword Pavilion won't completely offend the Myriad Immortal Tower for a woman?" Xiao Chun slowly said without the slightest hint of nervousness. Mu Qing had something to rely on. This was something Xiao Chun had already guessed. If not, how would he dare to ignore his warning? Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the house master fell silent. Xiao Chen was right. Seeing this, Xiao Chen paused for a moment before continuing. "But since I dared to come, I naturally wouldn't be unprepared. Since your Myriad Immortal Tower has experts, so does my Eastern Sword Pavilion." As Xiao Chen's voice faded, the 10 core elders of the Eastern Sword Pavilion, as well as Tsang Xian, Tsang Long, and Tsang Yun, appeared one after another. In the sky above the Qin residence, the top experts of the two hegemons faced each other. The 10 core elders of the Eastern Sword Pavilion were naturally facing the core elders of the Myriad Immortal Tower. Their numbers were the same. As the two sides looked at each other, one of the core elders of the Eastern Sword Pavilion smiled and said, "Yo, I didn't expect that the Myriad Immortal Tower would send so many people to our Eastern Sword Pavilion's true dragon wedding today. Why, are you all here to congratulate us?" A frivolous tease sounded. Upon hearing this, the core elders of the Myriad Immortal Tower naturally shouted, "Fatty Jean, what did you say?" The core elders of both sides knew each other. After all, although the Eastern Sun region had a large population, there were only a few people whose cultivation had surpassed the heaven-human stage. Therefore, everyone naturally knew each other. Enough nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't, then leave. Don't interfere with the wedding of our Eastern Sword Pavilion's disciple. Another core elder of the Eastern Sword Pavilion said. The core elders of both sides faced each other, and so did the hegemons. Landing beside Xiao Chun, Tsang Xian calmly looked at the house master of the Myriad Immortal Tower and said, "How about it? Do you choose to fight or to retreat?" He didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Upon hearing Tsang Xian's words, The housemaster of the Myriad Immortal Tower coldly asked, Song Xian, does your Eastern Sword Pavilion really want to start a war with my Myriad Immortal Tower over a woman? He previously thought that the Eastern Sword Pavilion wouldn't make such a big fuss over a woman, but now it seemed that he was wrong. Song Xian and the other two core elders had all moved out. This was enough to show the Eastern Sword Pavilion's attitude. Of course, the Eastern Sword Pavilion naturally didn't do this for Qin Shiru, but for Xiao Chun. Because Xiao Chun was going to marry Qin Shiru, all the experts of the Eastern Sword Pavilion had come to support Xiao Chun. A total of 26 experts whose cultivation had surpassed the heaven-human stage were gathered in one place. Both sides faced each other, and the pressure unconsciously emitted from their bodies made the faces of many guests turn pale. They hadn't even made a move, but they already felt that they couldn't bear the extreme pressure. Normally, it was rare to see Dao-seeking realm experts. But now, there were a total of 20 of them here. There were even 6 Dao-confirming realm experts. Without a doubt, the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal House had turned out in full force. With such a lineup, once the battle started, it would really be out of control. Either you die, or I die. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 90. There were a total of 26 experts whose cultivation had surpassed the heaven stage. The entire Qin clan was shrouded in a tense atmosphere, and everyone present found it difficult to even breathe. The Myriad Immortal Tower Master coldly shouted at Song Xian. Song Xian, is your East Sword Pavilion really going to start a war over a woman? No need to talk nonsense. Either you retreat or we fight. Song Xian indifferently replied to the Myriad Immortal Tower Master's shout. His attitude was extremely tough. He had always thought that the East Sword Pavilion would not start a war over a woman, but now it seemed that the situation was completely the opposite. However, with so many people present, where would the Myriad Immortal Tower's face be if they took the initiative to retreat? Wouldn't they become the laughing stock of the Eastern Sun region in the future? As a hegemon force, they valued their face more than anything else. Therefore, it was impossible for the Myriad Immortal Tower Master to retreat in the face of such a situation. Thus, they could only fight. A fierce glint flashed in the Myriad Immortal Tower Master's eyes as he said in a deep voice, You think I'm afraid of you? If you want to fight, then come. As a hegemon force, the Myriad Immortal Tower naturally would not lower its head to the East Sword Pavilion. Song Xian coldly smiled. Since that's the case, everyone, choose your opponents. Today, this old man will destroy the Myriad Immortal Tower here. Destroy the Myriad Immortal Tower here? Everyone present was stunned by Song Xian's words. How arrogant was this? The 5 hegemon forces of the Eastern Sun region had stood for hundreds of years and had always been on par with each other. Now, Song Xian actually wanted to destroy the Myriad Immortal Tower in front of everyone. Everyone was extremely shocked. However, the people of the East Sword Pavilion did not change their expressions in the slightest. The 10 core elders chose their opponents one after another. The core elder of the East Sword Pavilion, who was called Fatty Jean, directly stopped in front of a core elder of the Myriad Immortal Tower and said with a faint smile, Old Witch, shouldn't we settle the previous score? Fatty Jean, you're courting death. Upon hearing Fatty Jin's words, the core elder of the Myriad Immortal Tower bellowed furiously. Soon after, the two of them charged into the sky. Shortly after, the terrifying shockwaves from their battle spread from the sky. Elder Master Baikum, that's exactly what I was thinking. Soon, the core elders of the two forces engaged in a fierce battle. Everyone had some grudges between them, and this was the best time to settle them. The 10 core elders took action. Then, Song Yun and Song Long each chose a vice sect master of the Myriad Immortal Tower. Their cultivation bases had also reached the Dao confirmation realm. Looking at his opponent, a beautiful woman in a purple dress, Song Yun said flatly, Come on. Hearing Song Yun's words, the beautiful woman said with a complicated expression, Song Yun, is your East Sword Pavilion really going to fight to the death for a woman? In the eyes of the 10,000 Immortals Tower, the East Sword Pavilion was simply crazy. They didn't hesitate to start an all-out war for a woman. Hearing the beautiful woman's words, Song Yun smiled and said, "You're wrong. We're not doing this for a woman, but for the hidden dragon of my East Sword Pavilion. Xiao Chen's thoughts are the sword of my East Sword Pavilion." As soon as he finished speaking, Song Yun attacked. Seeing this, the beautiful woman naturally wouldn't allow herself to be captured without a fight. The two immediately engaged in a fierce battle. After Song Yun, Song Long and Song Xian also engaged in a fierce battle. Song Xian against the House Master of the Myriad Immortal Tower. 20 Dao Querying Realm experts and 6 Dao Validation Realm experts were engaged in a fierce battle. The constant pressure coming from the sky made everyone feel suffocated. Although both sides had deliberately placed the battle above the clouds, the terrifying pressure was still hard for everyone to accept. Many people looked at the sky in a daze and couldn't help but whisper softly, "Has the battle really started?" Until now, they still couldn't believe that the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal Tower had actually started a war. One must know that although the 5 giants of the Eastern Sun region occasionally had conflicts, each side was relatively restrained. There had never been a chaotic battle between the top forces of both sides. One must know that the battle between the Dao-seeking experts and the Dao confirmation experts was completely out of control. Once it broke out, it would be difficult to end it. They were really fighting fiercely. Not only them, even Zhao Wuyun and Lin Xing, the 2 great hidden dragons, were shocked at this moment. Have they really started fighting? Zhao Wuyun whispered softly. The Myriad Immortal Tower probably never thought that the East Sword Pavilion would be so crazy, said Lin Xing. The 2 giants had really started an all-out war. Regarding this, Lin Xing, Zhao Wuyun, and an elder of the Blood Demon Palace immediately sent the news back to the sect. Knowing that the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal Tower had really started an all-out war, the sect masters of the Leshan Prefecture, Firecloud Sect, and Blood Demon Palace were all stunned. This matter was probably going to get out of hand. The 3 giants chose to bide their time and let the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal Tower fight to the death. As for the final outcome, it didn't have much to do with them. Moreover, no matter what the outcome was, it would be beneficial to them. Because no matter who won in the end, it would definitely be a situation where both sides suffered heavy losses. At that time, the 3 giants could come out to clean up the mess and even swallow the territories of the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal Tower. Everyone had their own ulterior motives, but Xiao Chun was extremely calm, as if he wasn't worried that the East Sword Pavilion would fall into a situation where both sides suffered heavy losses. There are some things that the world didn't know. The current East Sword Pavilion was no longer the East Sword Pavilion of the past. Mu Qing's expression was calm and indifferent. At the same time, seeing that the East Sword Pavilion and the Myriad Immortal Tower had really started a war, he stood up shakily and shouted at Xiao Chun with a face full of shock and anger. "Lunatic, you lunatic. For a woman, you actually persuaded the East Sword Pavilion to start a war with my Myriad Immortal Tower. Do you know the consequences of doing so?" The 2 sides had already started a fierce battle. At this time, no one could stop this war. After all, the people fighting were all top experts of the Eastern Sun region. How could they stop before the outcome was decided? Mu Qing had completely miscalculated. It should be said that he didn't expect Xiao Chun and the East Sword Pavilion to be so crazy. For a woman, they would actually go to this extent. In the face of Mu Qing's angry shout, Xiao Chun smiled and turned to look at him. "Do you think that my East Sword Pavilion will perish together with your Myriad Immortal Tower? Mu Qing, you think too much. Such an ending will never happen." He had absolute confidence in Song Xian and the others because no one knew how generous the rewards from the Central Divine Domain were this time. It was so generous that even Song Xian and the others were shocked. In particular, the rewards given by the 9 Cloud Palace, the ruler of the 9 clouds, were specifically selected according to the cultivation level of Song Xian and the others. Many of them were rare heavenly treasures in the Eastern Sun region. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 91. No one knew how generous the rewards the East Sword Pavilion had received from 9 Firmaments Palace. In addition, no one knew that Xiao Qian's performance in the Hundred Spirits Graveyard had revealed a secret that the East Sword Pavilion had kept hidden for many years. At the same time, it had fulfilled the dream of Song Xian and the other two. The world didn't know this, but the Myriad Immortal Tower no longer had the qualifications to fight the East Sword Pavilion. This could be seen from the battle in the sky. After an intense battle, the 10 core elders of the Myriad Immortal Tower had ugly expressions. At the same time, the Myriad Immortal Tower Master and the other two Dao validation experts were the same. After exchanging over 100 moves with Song Xian, the Myriad Immortal Tower Master's eyes were filled with disbelief. You have broken through to the half-step Dao Gate realm. After an intense battle, the Myriad Immortal Tower Master couldn't believe that everyone from the East Sword Pavilion had broken through. The 10 core elders had broken through from the Dao Seeking realm to the half-step Dao Validation realm, while Song Xian, Song Yun, and Song Long had broken through from the Dao Validation realm to the half-step Dao Gate realm. Although it was only a small half-step at the Dao Seeking realm and the Dao Validation realm, the difference of a half-step was like the difference between heaven and earth. Just like now, after everyone from the East Sword Pavilion had broken through, the Myriad Immortal Tower was no match for them. It was only a matter of time before they were defeated. In the face of the Myriad Immortal Tower Master's shock, Song Xian smiled indifferently. Why? Are you very surprised? The Myriad Immortal Tower Master fell silent after hearing Song Xian's words. He finally understood where the East Sword Pavilion's confidence came from. He didn't expect the expert from the East Sword Pavilion to break through in such a short period of time. As such, the Myriad Immortal Tower was indeed no match for them. The path of martial arts started from the Body Refinement realm, followed by the Channel Opening realm, followed by the Yellow realm, Mysterious Ian realm, Earth Mirror realm, and Heaven realm. After the Heaven realm, cultivators had already transcended the mortal world and began to seek the vast path of martial arts. It was called the Dao Seeking realm. From the Dao Seeking realm, it was followed by the Dao Validation realm, Dao Gate realm, and Dao Transformation realm. Previously, the core elders of the 5 great leaders of the Eastern Sun region had been at the Dao Querying realm, while the other great leaders had been at the Dao Affirmation realm. But now, the core elders of the East Sword Pavilion and the Song Xian trio had all made breakthroughs. The cultivation of the 10 core elders had reached the half-step Dao Validation stage, while the Song Xian trio had reached the half-step Dao Gate stage. As a result, the overall strength of the East Sword Pavilion had naturally increased greatly, leaving the other 4 giants behind. He couldn't understand how the East Sword Pavilion had improved so much in such a short period of time. However, Song Xian clearly didn't give the Myriad Immortal Tower's master too much time to think. His attacks didn't slow down, and after several hundred moves, Song Xian successfully struck the Myriad Immortal Tower's master's chest, injuring him. They had already gained an overwhelming advantage. Moreover, it was not just Song Xian. The East Sword Pavilion was also suppressing the Myriad Immortal Tower on the other battlefields. No one knew what the battle situation was like in the sky. Just as everyone was making wild guesses, a black shadow descended from the sky and landed heavily in front of everyone. Someone had been shot down from the sky. Did this mean that the victor had already been decided? Everyone looked at the figure that had fallen from the sky. When the dust dissipated, everyone saw that it was a core elder of the Myriad Immortal Tower. The Myriad Immortal Tower's first defeat shocked everyone for a moment. However, this was just the beginning. In a short period of 100 breaths, 9 more figures descended from the sky in succession. They were all core elders of the Myriad Immortal Tower. As a result, the core elders of the Myriad Immortal Tower were all wiped out, leaving only the Myriad Immortal Tower's master and the other 2 Dao validation experts. No one had expected such a situation. However, in just a few dozen breaths, the Myriad Immortal Tower's master and the other 2 also descended from the sky, followed by the experts of the East Sword Pavilion. The final result of the battle between the 2 giants was that the Myriad Immortal Tower was completely crushed. The 10 core elders of the Dao Querying realm and the 3 Dao validation experts were all defeated. On the other hand, Although some of the East Sword Pavilion's experts were injured, they were all fine. There was no doubt that the East Sword Pavilion had won this battle. No one knew what had happened in the battle in the sky, but the outcome was obvious. The East Sword Pavilion had easily crushed the Myriad Immortal Tower. Looking at the Myriad Immortal Tower's master who was on his last breath, Song Xian, who was hovering in the air, shouted coldly, "I'll give you 3 breaths of time. Scram or die here." At this moment, no one felt that Song Xian's words were arrogant because he had proven himself with his strength. However, at the same time, in the face of such an outcome, everyone was puzzled. When did the East Sword Pavilion become so strong? Logically speaking, as the 5 giants of the Eastern Sun region, the difference in strength between the two sides shouldn't be that big. If there was such a big difference in strength, the East Sword Pavilion would have dominated the Eastern Sun region long ago. Why would they wait until now? Although they were puzzled, the outcome was already decided. In the face of Song Xian's shout, the Myriad Immortal Tower's master didn't refute because the current situation was that as long as Song Xian wanted to, the Myriad Immortal Tower would be removed from the Eastern Sun region. He no longer had the intention to fight. Seeing this, Song Xian glanced at Mu Qing, who had an ugly expression on his face, and said indifferently, "And you can scram too." The instigator was Mu Qing, so Song Xian naturally wouldn't forget him. Upon hearing this, Mu Qing's face gradually turned sinister. The development of the situation had completely exceeded his expectations. He originally thought that the East Sword Pavilion wouldn't start an all-out war for Qin Shu, but the reality had undoubtedly given him a slap in the face. Not only did the East Sword Pavilion start an all-out war, but they also won a complete victory and completely crushed the Myriad Immortal Tower. Mu Qing clenched his fists and his face turned sinister. After a long while, as if he had made a decision, a look of determination flashed in his eyes. Then, the storage ring in his hand flashed, and a golden talisman paper appeared in his hand. Seeing this talisman, Song Long in the sky exclaimed in surprise. A teleportation talisman. This is, at a glance, he recognized that Mu Qing had taken out a teleportation talisman. In front of everyone, Mu Qing shouted like a madman, "You forced me to do this. Shout, Chun, and everyone for the East Sword Pavilion. You must die. I want you all to die in front of me." As he spoke, Mu Qing activated the teleportation talisman in his hand. Soon, a door of light formed in front of him. Talismans were things that only talisman masters could inscribe. Just like weapon refiners and alchemists, talisman masters had a very noble status in the heavenly Qin continent. As the name implied, the teleportation talisman was a talisman that could build a spatial channel. Under normal circumstances, every teleportation talisman would be connected to a teleportation array. As long as the teleportation talisman was activated, the connected teleportation array could be opened for 2 parties to use. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 92. Xiao Chan didn't know where the teleportation formation that Mu Qing's teleportation talisman was connected to was. However, knowing Mu Qing's identity, a cold glint flashed through his eyes. He had already guessed where Mu Qing's teleportation talisman led to. As someone who had been abandoned by the Mu clan and possessed a precious treasure like the spatial talisman, there was no doubt that the spatial talisman was connected to the Mu clan. In other words, Mu Qing was asking the Mu clan for help. As the illegitimate son of the current head of the Mu clan and a lowly servant, Mu Qing was an abandoned son of the Mu clan. If he asked for help from the Mu clan, would the Mu clan help him? Even if they did, who would the Mu clan send, and what level of cultivation would they have? Xiao Qing guessed that Mu Qing was asking for help from the Mu clan. At the same time, after Mu Qing activated his teleportation talisman, in the Mu clan's residence in the Mu clan's Mu clan, the teleportation formation hidden in the lake suddenly emitted a white light. This was the sign that the teleportation formation had been activated. As one of the 7 overlords of the heavenly Qin continent, the entire Mu clan's territory was extremely large. The Mu clan's residence was built in the heart of the Mu clan's residence, occupying a total of 108 peaks. Although it was called a clan, its scale was no less than that of a sect. From this, one could see how powerful the Mu clan was. As the current head of the Mu clan, Mu Yong was wearing a simple cyan robe. His face was handsome, and his body unconsciously emitted a dignified aura. Sitting in a bamboo pavilion in the courtyard, Mu Yong looked at the teleportation formation and muttered to himself expressionlessly. Mu Qing. Mu Yong looked at the teleportation formation with a complicated expression and muttered to himself. Mu Qing was an abandoned son of the Mu clan. Even his name wasn't listed in the Mu clan's genealogy. It could be said that in the Mu clan, there was no such person as Mu Qing. But no matter what, Mu Qing was still his son, and the teleportation talisman was given to him by Mu Yong. It could be considered as a life-saving treasure. He had promised Mu Qing that as long as he activated the teleportation talisman, he would immediately rush over. This was the only concern he had for Mu Qing as a father. And now, Mu Qing had really activated the teleportation talisman. After a moment of silence, Mu Yong stood up and slowly walked out of the pavilion. He stood on the teleportation formation. Without telling anyone, under the white light, Mu Yang's figure slowly disappeared. He didn't break his promise to Mu Qing. He went alone to the Dongyang region. Mu Yong had already teleported to the Dongyang region. At the same time, in the main courtyard of the Qing clan, Mu Yong, who was wearing a cyan robe, slowly walked out of the light door. After he appeared, the light door slowly disappeared. Indifferently sizing up the surrounding people, Mu Yong frowned slightly, then looked at Mu Qing and asked, "What's the matter?" Two simple words, but there wasn't the slightest trace of a father's love for his son. Facing Mu Yang's indifference, Mu Qing gritted his teeth and replied, "I want you to kill everyone in the East Sword Pavilion." Towards Mu Yong, Mu Qing's heart was filled with endless resentment. He had been resentful since the day he was born. Why was he expelled from the Mu clan and even exiled to the Dongyang region? Could it be that the Mu clan couldn't accept him? Just because he was the son of Mu Yong and a lowly servant, he was given the title of a lowly person? His eyes were filled with hatred, but Mu Yong didn't mind. "I said that in this life, I will only help you with one thing. Are you sure?" He was summoned to destroy the Dongjian Pavilion. Facing Mu Yang's question, Mu Qing gritted his teeth and nodded. "I'm sure." He knew that Mu Yong would only help him once. After this, Mu Yong wouldn't care about his life anymore. Mu Qing should have treasured this opportunity, but the hatred in his heart made him only have one thought, and that was to destroy the Dongjian Pavilion and kill Shao Chun. The hatred in his eyes was mixed with the desire to kill. The hatred came from the resentment towards Mu Yong, and the desire to kill came from the anger towards Shao Chun. Mu Yang's face was a little ferocious. After getting Mu Qing's confirmation, he nodded slightly and took a step forward. In this step, Mu Yong, who was like an ordinary person, suddenly burst out with the power of breaking the sky. It was as if they were two completely different people. The contrast was too great. Facing this pressure, many of the people present fainted. Those who were only at the Yellow Realm couldn't even resist the pressure and fainted. Even those who were at the mysterious Ian Realm were struggling to hold on. Strong, too strong. If Song Xian and the others were like majestic mountains, then Mu Yong was like an unreachable star in the ninth heaven. There was no comparison between the two. Beyond the Dao Gate realm, Song Long, who had already touched the threshold of the Dao Gate realm, felt Mu Yang's pressure and said to himself. It was obvious that Mu Yang's cultivation had already surpassed the Dao Gate realm. Mu Yang said softly, "Point someone, you point one, and I'll kill one." These words were so domineering. He didn't put anyone in his eyes and directly asked Mu Qing to point someone. Mu Qing pointed one, and Mu Yang would kill one. Hearing Mu Yang's words, Mu Qing couldn't help but tremble. Was this the tyranny of the Mu family? He couldn't help but fantasize. If he could be recognized by the Mu family, what would he be like now? Of course, this was only Mu Qing's fantasy. He would never be recognized by the Mu family in this lifetime. Mu Qing's eyes were filled with killing intent. He first looked at Song Xian and the other Dongjian Pavilion experts in the sky, and said coldly. The 13 of them, his first target was Song Xian and the others. As for Xiao Chun, Mu Qing wouldn't let him die so easily. He would let Mu Yiyang destroy his cultivation and then slowly torture him. From the beginning, he asked Mu Yiyang to kill Song Xian and the others. Hearing Mu Qing's words, Mu Yiyang looked at Song Xian and the others. He didn't change his expression even though they were half-step Dao Gate realm experts. It was as if Song Xian and the others were ants in his eyes. His face was expressionless. He slowly pointed his finger and a green light flashed. Facing Mu Yiyang's finger, Song Xian and the others couldn't even muster up the slightest bit of resistance. What kind of terrifying power was this? It made people unable to even fight back. Song Xian and the others were about to be killed by Mu Yiyang's finger. But just as the green light was about to hit Song Xian and the others, a purple light appeared and easily blocked Mu Yiyang's attack. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 93. In the nick of time, a purple light appeared and successfully blocked Mu Yiyang's attack. Seeing this, Mu Yiyang frowned. As for the others, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. While Mu Yiyang was frowning slightly, an illusory figure appeared above Song Xian and the others. The figure was dressed in a robe made of thunder clouds, and the appearance of this figure made everyone lose their composure. Everybody was astonished. It was the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. The ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds was using his godly awareness. What was going on? The ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds had shown up because of a wedding? Everybody looked at the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. After a short time, Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun came back to their senses and knelt down in front of the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. Greetings, ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. Greetings, ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, said Lin Xing and Zhao Wuyun. The others came back to their senses and knelt down as well. They didn't dare look at the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. The ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds ignored them. He looked at Mu Yiyang indifferently. You can't kill them. Go back. He was the leader of the Mu clan. He had a high social status in the Tian Shan continent, but in front of the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, he didn't mean anything. Even though he didn't kneel down, he didn't dare show any disrespect to the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, said the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds indifferently. Let's go. Go back to where you came from. When Mu Yiyang heard this, he didn't do anything. The Eastern Sword Pavilion was just a small sect in the Dongyang region. Even though it was one of the 5 biggest sects in the Dongyang region, it was nothing in Mu Yiyang's eyes. He could have easily destroyed the Eastern Sword Pavilion, but the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds had shown up. Mu Yiyang wasn't happy. He couldn't disobey the ruler of the Mu clan, but the leader of the Mu clan had a very high social status. If he left like that, people would laugh at him. Besides, the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds couldn't possibly refuse to give him face because of Dongjian Pavilion. After all, the ancestor of the Mu clan was also one of the 7 rulers. Thinking about that, Mu Yiyang braced himself and said to the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, Ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, Dongjian Pavilion, said the ruler respectfully. But before Mu Yiyang could finish, the ruler grunted coldly and interrupted him. He raised his finger, and the 9 clouds' godly lightning descended from the sky. The crowd heard lightning crackle, and when the lightning dispersed, Mu Yiyang was severely injured. I've already told you to go back to where you came from. Have you turned a deaf ear to my words? The ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds had severely injured Mu Yiyang in one attack. At the same time, Mu Yiyang hadn't thought that the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds would do something like that. He had just wanted to destroy Dongjian Pavilion, and the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds had severely injured him. Mu Yiyang coughed up blood and slowly stood up. At the same time, the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds said, If you don't piss off in 3 breaths, I'll destroy you. What was wrong with the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds? Why was he so aggressive? Mu Yong pulled a long face, but he wasn't stupid enough to disrespect the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds. As Mu Yong was about to leave, another clone appeared in the sky. When Mu Yong saw that clone, he was overjoyed and bowed respectfully. Greetings, ancestor. Another ruler had arrived. It was the ancestor of the Mu clan, ruler Mu Tian. When two rulers appeared, the crowd was going crazy. What was going on? Ruler Mu Tian looked at the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds and said calmly, "Continent of the Nine Clouds, you don't respect the Mu clan at all. For the sake of Dongjian Pavilion, you dared injure the leader of the Mu clan. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had severely injured Mu Yang. That was a humiliation to the Mu clan. As the leader of the Mu clan, Mu Yang represented the Mu clan, and the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had humiliated him. When the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds heard ruler Mu Tian, he said indifferently, "Explain? Do I need to give you an explanation? I already gave him a chance, but he didn't want it. Therefore, I had no choice but to teach him a lesson." Good, very good. Yang, I'm here. You don't need to worry about anything. Destroy the East Sword Pavilion. Let's see how the continent of the Nine Clouds will stop you, said the ruler of the Heaven of Wood, smiling angrily. Mu Yang had wanted to destroy the Eastern Sword Pavilion, and the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had stopped him. Therefore, the ruler of the Sky of Wood wanted to destroy the Eastern Sword Pavilion in front of the continent of the Nine Clouds. Even though the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had injured him, Mu Yang was still strong enough to destroy Dongjian Pavilion. He replied respectfully when he heard the ancestor of the Nine Clouds. With the ancestor there, Mu Yang calmed down. He didn't fear the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds anymore. After all, it was impossible for the two rulers to kill each other. Mu Yang was about to attack, but the ruler of the Sky of the Wood moved in front of the ruler of the Nine Heavens to prevent him from getting involved. As Mu Yang was about to attack, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Heavens spoke up. "Today, if you dare lay a finger on anyone from the East Sword Pavilion, my Nine Firmaments Palace will declare war on the Mu family." He didn't sound threatening at all, but Mu Yang was stupefied. Because of East Sword Pavilion, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had declared war against the Mu clan. Mu Yang wasn't the only one who was astonished. Ruler Mu Tian was also astonished. Why would a ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds do that for Dongjian Pavilion? "Jiu Shao, you want to start a war with my Mu clan for a mere Eastern Sword Pavilion?" Once a war between sovereigns broke out, it wouldn't be like the 5 great leaders of the Eastern Sun region. The flames of war would definitely affect the entire Heavenly Qin continent. When the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds heard ruler Mu Tian, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds said indifferently, "Tiny Eastern Sword Pavilion? Mu Tian, your Mu family wants to destroy my Nine Firmaments Palace's Sword Peak. Do you think I could just stand by and watch?" "Sword Peak? What did you say?" "The East Sword Pavilion is the sword peak of your Nine Firmaments Palace's Sword Peak?" asked Heavenly Ruler Wood. "Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 94. When the ruler of the continent of the Nine Firmaments said that East Sword Pavilion was the sword peak of Nine Firmaments Palace, the ruler of Wood looked puzzled. As one of the 7 overlords of the Heavenly Chun continent, everyone knew that Nine Firmaments Palace had 9 peaks. The 9 peaks represented the continent of the Nine Firmaments. Nine Firmaments Palace was different from ordinary sections. It was more like an alliance. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Firmaments was the palace leader, but he didn't care about the affairs of Nine Firmaments Palace. Most of the time, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Firmaments Palace was more like a symbol of Nine Firmaments Palace or a protector. He didn't care about the development of Nine Firmaments Palace. Therefore, the 9 peaks of Nine Firmaments Palace did their own things. Although they were part of the same sect, the 9 peaks were separated. This included the distribution of cultivation resources, the issuance of missions, and the businesses under their banner. Each peak master was like the sect master of a sect, monopolizing the power. For over 100 years, the 9 peaks of Sword Pavilion had only 8 peaks. The ninth peak, Sword Peak, had never had one. When the ruler of Wood heard that Sword Pavilion was the Sword Peak of 9 Firmaments Palace, he was stunned, but he quickly thought of something. Could it be that Sword Pavilion was founded by crazy Jian? He suddenly remembered something about 9 Firmaments Palace. It was around 300 years ago. Back then, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace hadn't become one of the 7 rulers, but he had already founded 9 Firmaments Palace. Back when 9 Firmaments Palace was founded, the ruler of the 9 Firmaments chose the divine mountain of the 9 Firmaments. As the name implied, the divine mountain of the 9 Firmaments consisted of 9 towering mountains. Each of the mountains was extremely large, comparable to a mountain range in the Eastern Yang region. 9 Firmaments Palace chose 9 Firmaments Mountain as their headquarters. Relying on the 9 peaks of 9 Firmaments Mountain, 9 Firmaments Palace established 9 peaks. They were Bloodblade Peak, Hunter Battles Peak, Mighty God Peak, Netherspear Peak, Limitless Peak, Holy Maiden Peak, 100 Shadows Peak, Prison Flame Peak, and Heavenly Sword Peak. The 9 peaks were the foundation of 9 Firmaments Palace. The leader of Celestial Sword Peak was the founder of Sword Pavilion, Crazy Jian Songfeng. However, not long after 9 Firmaments Palace was established, Jian Sanzi suddenly announced his withdrawal from 9 Firmaments Palace. Additionally, he led the cultivators from Heavenly Sword Peak and disappeared. No one knew why Songfeng left 9 Firmaments Palace. However, since then, 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak had remained empty. 300 years had passed, but only 8 of 9 Firmaments Palace's 9 peaks remained. Even after the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace became a ruler, he still showed no intention of filling up the empty Heavenly Sword Peak. And now, the ruler of the 9 Firmaments had personally admitted that the East Sword Pavilion was 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak. That was why ruler Wood had recalled this matter. The heavenly ruler of Wood's guess was correct. The predecessor of the East Sword Pavilion was indeed 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak. The master of the Tsang Xian Trio was none other than Tsang Feng, known as the Lunatic Sword. The reason why Tsang Feng chose to leave 9 Firmaments Palace was because of the Peak Lord of Prison Flame Peak. Back then, the Peak Lord of Prison Flame Peak had fallen in love with the Peak Lord of Holy Maiden Peak. However, the Peak Lord of Holy Maiden Peak was in love with Tsang Feng. After finding out about this, the Peak Lord of Prison Flame Peak had attempted to poison Tsang Feng. Although Tsang Feng had managed to escape death in the end, his cultivation base had been crippled due to the #1 poison in the world, the Nether Domain Heavenly Poison Powder. Without his cultivation base, Tsang Feng knew that the Peak Lord of Prison Flame Peak would not let him off so easily. Additionally, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments was in closed-door cultivation, attempting to break through to the ruler's stage. Thus, Tsang Feng had no choice but to secretly flee to the Eastern Sun region. He changed his name and established the East Sword Pavilion there. After over 300 years, no one knew that the East Sword Pavilion's predecessor was 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak. Due to the Nether Domain Heavenly Poison Powder, Tsang Feng died young. However, before his death, Tsang Feng's only wish was for someone to lead the East Sword Pavilion back to 9 Firmaments Palace and restore Heavenly Sword Peak's prestige. Xiao Qian had just learned about the East Sword Pavilion secret. Because of that, Tsang Xian and the other two had always tried to find a way to return to 9 Firmaments Palace. Unfortunately, they had never succeeded. But this time, because of Xiao Qian's performance in the 100 Spirits Graveyard, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments finally paid attention to the East Sword Pavilion. When the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace learned that the East Sword Pavilion had been founded by Tsang Feng, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace immediately gave the order for the East Sword Pavilion to inherit the 9th peak of 9 Firmaments Palace, Heavenly Sword Peak. But when the ruler of the continent of the 9 Clouds learned the truth, the leader of the Prison Flame Peak had escaped. Even the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds couldn't find him. Even the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds couldn't find him. Because of Shao Chun, the East Sword Pavilion had finally been able to return to 9 Firmaments Palace and regain control of Heavenly Sword Peak. He knew that if the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments was right, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments would definitely fight to the death with the Mu clan. In the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments, he had already let Song Feng down. Song Feng had died because of his brother. Therefore, if the Mu clan wanted to attack the East Sword Pavilion, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments would definitely fight to the death. He hadn't thought that the East Sword Pavilion would have such a secret. After a short time, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace grabbed Mu Yi-Yang, and the two of them disappeared. The ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace decided to give way. After the two of them left, Mu Qing was in despair. He hadn't thought that things would turn out this way. But before he could come back to his senses, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments said, "People of the 10,000 Immortals Tower, piss off within 3 breaths." When the members of the 10,000 Immortals Tower heard that, they felt as if they had been granted amnesty. They left without hesitation. Mu Qing followed them, of course. After the members of the 10,000 Immortals Tower left, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments Palace looked at Shao Chun and smiled thinly. "Little boy, I'll wait for you in 9 Firmaments Palace." When Shao Chun heard that, he smiled and bowed. Then, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments waved his hand, and 2 jade pendants in the shape of an yin and yang fish floated towards Shao Chun and Qin Shi. "Even though this jade pendant isn't a treasure, it's been with me for many years. I'll give it to you," said the ruler of the 9 Firmaments Palace. The Pisces jade pendant looked ordinary, but if there were people present who knew about it, they would definitely go crazy. That was because these 2 jade pendants were carved from soul-nourishing jade. If one kept them by one side all year round, they would have the effect of nourishing one's soul. Even though Shao Chun and Qin Shi hadn't reached the stage where they could cultivate their souls yet, if they had the soul-nourishing jade to nourish their souls, it would be extremely beneficial for them in the future. They hadn't thought that the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments would give them such precious gifts. After giving the 2 fish jade pendants to Shao Chun and Qin Shi, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments said to Song Xian and the other 2, "In a month, people from 9 Firmaments Palace will come to pick you up. Besides, as the leaders of Celestial Sword Peak, your cultivation levels are still a bit low. You should break through as soon as possible. You need to at least reach the Tao transformation layer to be qualified to control a peak." After saying that, the ruler of the continent of the 9 Firmaments disappeared. Please add, recommend, reward. After a series of hypocritical and far-fetched explanations, the wedding proceeded just like that. However, the groom changed from Mu Qing to Shao Chun. At the same time, Qin Shi, who was originally against this wedding in every possible way, became incomparably obedient, and his heart was filled with sweetness. He had never thought that he would marry Shao Chun, let alone that Shao Chun would actually marry him. In a daze, Qin Shi and Shao Chun began the wedding ceremony. First, bow to heaven and earth. Second, bow to your parents. Husband and wife, bow to each other. After the entire complicated wedding process, the sky was completely dark. Qin Shi was sent to the bridal chamber, while Shao Chun stayed outside to entertain the guests. It was late into the night. After arranging the guests, Shao Chun returned to the room. At this time, Qin Shi's face was still covered by the red cloth. When he heard the door open, Qin Shi's body visibly moved slightly. It was unknown whether he was nervous or not. His face was slightly red. However, alcohol had no effect on Shao Chun. He circulated the spiritual energy in his body and easily dispelled the alcohol in his body. Then, he walked slowly to Qin Shi and gently lifted the red cloth covering his face. In just a few months, Qin Shi had indeed changed a lot. He was more than 10 times more beautiful than before. Of course, Qin Shuru wasn't ugly in the past. But now, Qin Shuru was even more beautiful than before. Xiao Chun looked a little dazed. Feeling Xiao Qin's infatuated gaze, Qin Shuru blushed slightly. He was secretly delighted, but more than that, he felt shy. Blushing, Qin Shuru lowered his head and said coquettishly, "What are you looking at?" Qin Shuru's words brought Xiao Chun back to his senses. He smiled and said, "I'm looking at my wife." "Senior sister, you're so beautiful today." Qin Shuru was so beautiful that one couldn't take their eyes off him. When Qin Shuru heard Xiao Chun call him wife, his face turned even redder. Just as Qin Shuru was feeling shy, Xiao Chun sat down beside him and gently pulled Qin Shuru into his arms. That night, Qin Shuru was shy. When Xiao Chun woke up the next morning, he saw Qin Shuru's beautiful face looking at him with a sweet smile. Perhaps it was because of the crazy night, or perhaps because Qin Shuru had already decided to give himself to Xiao Chun. Qin Shuru wasn't as shy as before. His eyes were like a pair of crescent moons as he smiled at Xiao Chun. "Junior brother, please take care of me for the rest of my life. Senior sister too, please take care of me for the rest of my life as well." Xiao Chun replied with a smile after hearing Qin Shuru's words. They stayed on the bed until noon before Xiao Chun and Bai Ruyue got up and washed up. Then, the two of them went to visit Qin Lai, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruyue. Xiao Chun was very calm when facing Qin Lai, but Qin Shuru couldn't help but feel nervous when facing Xiao Qing and Bai Ruyue, especially when he called them father and mother. Qin Shuru's face turned red again. On the other hand, Bai Ruyue couldn't help but nod repeatedly when she saw Qin Shuru's shy face. It was obvious that she was very satisfied with Qin Shuru. In terms of appearance, Qin Shuru was definitely hundreds of streets ahead of Qin Muxue. The two of them weren't on the same level at all. It was the first time Bai Ruyue had seen such a beautiful woman. She was like a fairy from heaven. Bai Ruyue completely accepted Qin Shuru and didn't care about her shyness. She held her hand and started chatting. Under Bai Ruyue's passionate attacks, Qin Shuru gradually relaxed. They stayed in the Qin residence for half a month. After half a month, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru finally set off for the East Sword Pavilion. Since he had already married Xiao Chun, Qin Shuru naturally joined the East Sword Pavilion again. They rode the green feather eagle back to the East Sword Pavilion. Of course, little Qing also accompanied them. As for Mo Jie, he had already returned with Song Xian and the others. As for Xiao Qing and Bai Ruyue, Xiao Chun had arranged for a Sword Pavilion elder to escort them back to Lingshan County City. Originally, Xiao Chun had planned to let the two elders go to the East Sword Pavilion together, but the two didn't agree. They had been away from home for so long and wanted to go back and take a look. After all, Xiao Qing was the head of the Xiao family, and there were many things in the family that he needed to handle. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 96. They returned to the East Sword Pavilion safely and stayed in the dustless residence as usual. When Xiao Chun, Qin Shuru, and little Qing returned to the dustless residence, Qing Yao and Qing Luo were already waiting for them at the door. Qing Yao and Qing Luo had been in charge of taking care of Xiao Chun ever since he entered the East Sword Pavilion's outer sect. When they saw Xiao Chun return, they first bowed to Xiao Chun and then to Qin Shuru. "Madam, the entire East Sun region knew about Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru's wedding, so Qing Yao and Qing Luo naturally addressed Qin Shuru as Madam." Qin Shuiro nodded her head graciously and walked into the dustless residence. She did not have any friendship with the two ladies. After half a month of getting along, Xiao Chun realized that not only did Qin Shuru's appearance improve tremendously, but his temperament also changed a lot. Apart from Xiao Chun, he was cold and indifferent to everyone else. The icy aura that he unconsciously emitted made people feel as though they were 1,000 miles away from him. Xiao Chun had also checked Qin Shuru's body, but there were no problems. In the end, she could only attribute it to the Yin spirit body. Perhaps it was because of the effects of the Yin spirit body after it was activated, Xiao Chun thought. In the following days, Shao Chun and Qin Shuru stayed in the East Sword Pavilion to cultivate. What surprised Shao Chun was that after the Yin spirit body was activated, Qin Shuru's cultivation speed was ridiculously fast. It was not inferior to Shao Chun's cultivation speed at all. Of course, if the heavenly sword embryo completed its transformation, Shao Chun's cultivation speed would definitely skyrocket. When that time came, Qin Shuru might not be able to keep up with Shao Chun's cultivation speed. As expected of a special constitution, Qin Shuru was greatly improved in all aspects after he activated the Yin spirit body. She concentrated on her cultivation and would occasionally visit Songxian. At the same time, Shao Chun would also bring Qin Shuru back to Lingshan Prefecture City when he had time. After all, he had married a wife and he had to introduce her to the elders in the family. Surprisingly, no one in the Shao family objected to Qin Shuru's marriage. Instead, they were all in favor of him. Some of the Shao clan's younger generation even regarded Qin Shuru as a celestial being. They even said that if they wanted to marry a wife in the future, they would look for a woman like Qin Shuru. However, these words were naturally mocked by the other Shao clan's younger generation. Let alone the Danyang region, there were not many women in the entire Tianqian continent who could compare to a beauty like Qin Shuru. In short, Qin Shuru had become the dream lover of the entire Shao clan's younger generation. Of course, they could only watch helplessly. After all, Qin Shuru was Shao Chun's wife. How could they dare to have any improper thoughts? What was worth mentioning here was that because of Shao Chun, the younger generation of the Shao clan, as long as their talent was not too bad, could basically enter the Eastern Sword Pavilion and become a servant disciple. Of course, whether or not they could become an outer disciple in the end would depend on their own efforts. Even so, the Shao clan's strength was rapidly growing. In just a few months, with the help of the East Sword Pavilion, the Shao clan's strength had increased by dozens of times compared to before. There were no less than 10 Earth Mirror experts in the clan, and there were almost 100 mysterious Yuan experts. The only flaw was that the Shao clan did not have a Heaven Realm expert. After all, Heaven Realm experts were rare in the Danyang region. However, this was only temporary. With the cultivation resources provided by Shao Chun, Shao Qing and by Ru Yue had successfully broken through to the Earth Mirror. It was only a matter of time before they reached the Heaven Realm. It could be said that the Shao clan had become the #1 aristocratic family in Lingfeng country. Even the imperial family of Lingfeng country did not dare to show the slightest disrespect to the Shao clan. The current emperor was on equal footing with Shao Qing. There was even a Shao clan disciple who was engaged to the princess of the imperial family. The two families were preparing to become in-laws. Everything in the Shao clan was developing in a good direction. This scene naturally made many of the Shao clan's elders grin from ear to ear. Of course, they all knew that all of this was brought about by Shao Chun. Without Shao Chun, the Shao clan would still be a small clan hiding in Lingshan County City. It was because they understood this that no one in the Shao clan dared to go against Shao Qing's words. No one dared to shake Shao Qing's position as the head of the Shao clan. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 months, Shao Chun's cultivation base had successfully broken through to the initial stage of the mystic Yin realm. Qin Shuru had also successfully broken through to the initial stage of the mystic Yin realm. Time passed day by day. The matter of the East Sword Pavilion returning to 9 Firmaments Palace was handled by the Songxian trio in an orderly manner. It had now reached the final stage. They did not plan to move the entire East Sword Pavilion to 9 Firmaments Palace. The Songxian trio's idea was to keep the East Sword Pavilion, while 9 Firmaments Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak could become the destination for the disciples of the East Sword Pavilion. Once a disciple with decent talent reached the intersect in the East Sword Pavilion, they would be able to head to the Heavenly Sword Peak to further their studies. As such, the Songxian trio left behind 10 elders to oversee the East Sword Pavilion. In addition, the outer and intersect disciples also stayed behind to guard the place. This time, only the core disciples would be brought to the Heavenly Sword Peak. The 3-month deadline was about to arrive. On this day, the experts of 9 Firmaments Palace finally arrived. The sky had just brightened when a loud eagle cry rang out from the horizon. Immediately after, the numerous disciples and elders raised their heads to look at the sky. Soon, over a dozen mountain-like, golden-winged rocks flapped their wings and flew over from the horizon. Golden-winged rocks were grade 5 demonic beasts, equivalent to human Tao querying experts, as expected of an overlord force. Just their flying demonic beasts alone were comparable to Tao querying experts. Moreover, they had dispatched a total of 13 of them. The 13 golden-winged rocks flew to the sky above the East Sword Pavilion and slowly descended. Immediately after, a middle-aged man jumped down from the back of the golden-winged rocks. He came before Song Xian Trio and bowed. "Greetings, Peak Masters. This lowly one is called Chun Gang, the new elder of the Heavenly Sword Peak. I have come under the Palace Master's orders to welcome the 3 Peak Masters back to the Heavenly Sword Peak." Chun Gang had a Dao Gate cultivation base. His cultivation base was higher than Song Xian Trio's. However, his face was filled with respect. He had no choice. Song Xian Trio were Peak Masters while he was just an elder. He did not dare to be disrespectful to them. Hearing Chun Gang's words, Song Xian Trio did not act arrogantly. After all, his cultivation base was higher than theirs. They helped Chun Gang up with smiles on their faces and chatted casually for a while. Then, Song Xian instructed everyone to carry the things they were going to take away onto the golden-winged rocks. In truth, there was no need to bring anything with them. Moreover, there were not many people heading to Nine Firmaments Palace this time. They decided to set off early tomorrow morning. Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru also began to pack their things. At the same time, Qing Yao and Qing Luo were also fortunate enough to be able to head to Nine Firmaments Palace together because of Xiao Chun. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 97. Qing Luo and Qing Yao were not the only ones. Some outer and inner disciples with decent talent could also make an exception to head to Nine Firmaments Palace. Mo Jie and Qi Yin were one such example. The two of them could also head to Nine Firmaments Palace. There were also tens of outer and inner disciples who were qualified. Tomorrow, they would set off for the divine region of the Middle Earth and Nine Firmaments Palace. For everyone, the divine region of the Middle Earth was an unfamiliar place. It made them yearn for it, but they also felt apprehensive. They yearned for it because the divine region of the Middle Earth was the center of the entire heavenly Chun mainland. Especially in terms of martial arts, it far surpassed the Eastern Sun region. Moreover, it was very vast. There were many things that the Eastern Sun region did not have there. Over there, they could come into contact with more profound martial arts knowledge. To put it simply, the only way to become a true expert was to go to the divine region of the Middle Earth. Therefore, everyone yearned for the divine region of the Middle Earth. As for the apprehension, it was because there were countless experts in the divine region of the Middle Earth. There were also countless geniuses there. Perhaps they could be considered geniuses in the Eastern Sun region, but in the divine region of the Middle Earth, they could only be considered average or even bottom-tier existences. With conflicted feelings, the night passed. Early the next morning, just as Xiao Chun and the others were about to leave, Mo Jie ran towards them as soon as they stepped out of the dustless residence. He looked a little flustered. "What's wrong?" Xiao Chun asked when he saw Mo Jie so flustered early in the morning. Faced with Xiao Chun's question, Mo Jie took a deep breath. Then, with a hesitant expression, he said, "Chun, there's news about Chun Ling." Today was the day they would head to Nine Firmaments Palace. However, just now, Mo Jie suddenly heard about Chun Ling. Knowing that Xiao Chun had been asking about Chun Ling, Mo Jie hurriedly ran over. Hearing this, Xiao Chun's expression changed slightly. He asked, "Where is he?" It had been more than 3 months since the incident in the 100 Spirits graveyard. In these 3 months, Xiao Chun had never given up trying to find out more about Chun Ling. However, it was as if this guy had vanished in a thin air. There was no news from the East Sword Pavilion or the Blood Demon Hall. Now that he finally knew Chun Ling's whereabouts, Xiao Chun was naturally excited. Asked Mo Jie anxiously, Seeing that, Jia hesitated. He didn't know whether he should tell Xiao Chun about it or not. But if he didn't tell Xiao Chun would definitely blame him if he found out about it. He was in a dilemma. Seeing that, Xiao Chun urged. In the end, Jia had no choice but to tell Xiao Chun everything he knew. According to Jia, there had been no news of Chunling for more than 3 months because Chunling had not left the 100 Spirits graveyard. In other words, after the 100 Spirits graveyard closed, Chunling had not been sent out. Instead, he had stayed in the 100 Spirits graveyard alone for more than 3 months. Something like this had never happened before. Just 3 days ago, Chunling had appeared at the burial grounds. At the entrance of the 100 Spirits graveyard, he was coincidentally seen by a disciple from the Myriad Immortal Tower. For a person to not be forcefully sent out from the 100 Spirits graveyard, the Myriad Immortal Tower disciple guessed that Chunling must have obtained some amazing inheritance or treasure. Thus, he wanted to snatch it away. However, not only did the disciple fail, but he was also killed by Chunling. After that, the matter became more and more serious. Everyone suspected that Chunling had obtained the greatest benefit from the 100 Spirits graveyard and knew the secret of the 100 Spirits graveyard. Therefore, many forces joined in to surround Chunling, including the Blood Demon Hall. There was nothing they could do about it. The 100 Spirits graveyard was simply too mysterious. The greatest inheritance within it was something everyone wanted to obtain. As such, Chunling became the target of everyone's pursuit. Hearing Jia's words, Xiao Chun understood the whole story. A glint of determination flashed across his eyes. Without much hesitation, Xiao Chun turned to look at Qin Shiru and said, "You leave with Master and the others first. I will go to 9 Firmament's palace to find you." Chunling's current situation was very dangerous. Even the Blood Demon Hall had become greedy. Xiao Chun could not just sit by and do nothing. He did not have many friends by his side to begin with, and Chunling was definitely one of them. Although the time they spent together was not much, it was not an exaggeration to say that Chunling was definitely the person he liked the most. Therefore, Xiao Chun could not just watch as Chunling fell into a dangerous situation and not save him. "I'll go with you." Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Qin Shiru said, "No, you go with Master and the others. I'm only going to save him. Too many people will only get in the way. Be good, be good." After rejecting Qin Shiru's request, Xiao Chun kissed her forehead. Then, he summoned an azure feather eagle and disappeared into the horizon. Xiao Chun left alone with little Qing. After that, Qin Shiru informed Song Xian of the situation. After learning that Song Xian had everyone leave first while he chased after Xiao Chun, fearing that Xiao Chun would be in danger. Riding on the azure feather eagle, according to Jia, Chunling was last seen in the outskirts of the All-Beast mountain range. As such, Xiao Chun naturally headed straight for the All-Beast mountain range. Without stopping for a moment, Xiao Chun arrived at the All-Beast mountain range in just 1.5 days. Looking down at the endless dense forest below, Xiao Chun whispered softly, "Where exactly are you?" The All-Beast mountain range covered an extremely large area. It was said that one could reach the central divine domain by passing through the All-Beast mountain range. However, it was almost impossible to pass through the All-Beast mountain range because it was said that there was a kingdom of demonic beasts at the core of the All-Beast mountain range. There are already beast kings that could transform into human form. Even Dao transformation realm experts wouldn't dare to trespass into the kingdom of demonic beasts. The outskirts of the All-Beast mountain range were not unfamiliar to Xiao Chun. After all, he had trained here for 5 months. He was thinking about where to find Chunling suddenly. An idea flashed through his mind. He thought of a place where Chunling was most likely to be. Jumping off the azure feather eagle's back, Xiao Chun let the azure feather eagle return to the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Bringing little Qing with him, Xiao Chun charged into the All-Beast mountain range. Rushing madly along the way, Xiao Chun sent messages through the forest. Along the way, he met many cultivators from different factions. They were probably all looking for Chunling's whereabouts. Without alerting the enemy, Xiao Chun avoided the crowd. After a night of rushing, Xiao Chun finally arrived at his destination. It was the cave where he and Chun Ling had stayed when they were training. After thinking about it, this should be the place where Chun Ling was most likely to be. Firstly, this place was well hidden. Only he and Chun Ling knew about it. Secondly, the exit of the entire All-Beast mountain range was surrounded. It was impossible for Chun Ling to leave the All-Beast mountain range. Therefore, it was very likely that he would choose to hide here. Looking at the familiar cave in front of him, it was as if he had returned to the time when the two of them were training. The crazy and absurd things of the past unconsciously surfaced. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 98. Xiao Chun, Mother of Asterisk Her, come here quickly. There's a level 3 monster here. Get it? Xiao Chun, we're rich. F asterisk CK. This is a heavenly spirit fruit. We're rich, we're really rich. Xiao Chun, F asterisk CK your mother. Where are my underwear? Looking at the object reminded him of Chun Ling. His mind unconsciously recalled the time when he and Chun Ling were training in the Thousand Beast Mountain Range. He anxiously walked towards the cave and prayed in his heart. You bastard, please don't die. Walking quickly into the cave, just as Xiao Chun entered the cave, a blade flashed past. Seeing this, Xiao Chun hurriedly leaned to the side and narrowly dodged the blade. Then he saw Chun Ling, who was covered in blood and holding a long blade, looking at Xiao Chun unsteadily. Still alive, I didn't come too late. Looking at Chun Ling, who was seriously injured but still alive, Xiao Chun unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. However, this relief only lasted for a moment. Soon, Xiao Chun felt that the current Chun Ling was completely different from before. The storage ring in his hand flashed, and the Scarlet Heaven sword was instantly unsheathed. The tip of the sword pointed at Chun Ling and said coldly, You're not Chun Ling. Who are you? Through his eyes, temperament, and intuition, Xiao Chun was sure that the Chun Ling in front of him was not Chun Ling. Or rather, he was not the Chun Ling from before. With Xiao Chun pointing the sword at him, Chun Ling's eyes flashed with a complicated look. He took the initiative to put down the long blade in his hand and sat on the ground. He said with some difficulty, I'm Chun Ling, but not the Chun Ling from before. He said a strange sentence. He did not expect Xiao Chun to appear here. Chun Ling's heart was extremely complicated. He did not know how to explain this to Xiao Chun. In the end, Chun Ling used the most direct method to tell Xiao Chun. According to Chun Ling, he was the reincarnation of an ancient almighty. However, he had not recovered the memories of his previous life. However, he had recovered them in the 100 Spirits graveyard. His previous life was the ancient almighty that had fallen in the 100 Spirits graveyard. It was also because of this that Chun Ling was not forcefully teleported out of the 100 Spirits graveyard. He told Xiao Chun everything that had happened to him. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chun let out a sigh of relief. The reincarnation of an ancient powerhouse was indeed a little. How should he put it? It was hard to accept. After explaining his situation, Chun Ling looked at Xiao Qing, who was coiled around Xiao Chun, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. However, he did not say anything. He then looked at Xiao Chun and said, I've finished. You can think that I'm no longer the Chun Ling from before. Also, what are you doing here? You want my legacy? Upon hearing this, Xiao Chun immediately sat down beside Chun Ling and scolded, Bullsh asterisk T. Why would I want your trash legacy? I'm only here to see if you're dead so that I can collect your corpse. As he spoke, Xiao Chun took out 2 healing pills from his storage ring and handed them to Chun Ling. Upon seeing this, Chun Ling smiled and did not say anything. He swallowed them in one gulp. After swallowing the healing pills, Chun Ling began to heal his injuries. His injuries were indeed too severe. With such a body, it was impossible for the two of them to escape even if they wanted to. Therefore, the only thing they could do now was to heal his injuries first and think about other things later. Chun Ling closed his eyes and healed his injuries. Xiao Chun stood guard for him. He looked at Chun Ling, who had not changed much. He did not expect this guy to be the reincarnation of an ancient almighty. However, this was not important to Xiao Chun. As long as he was still Chunling, that was enough. With nothing to do, Xiao Chun took out the secret beast transformation manual that he had snatched from Chun Man and flipped through it. In fact, he had wanted to cultivate this secret technique for a long time. However, he had not been able to find a suitable demonic beast blood essence. After all, this beast transformation could only refine one type of demonic beast blood essence. Once it was refined, it could not be changed. This made Xiao Chun extremely conflicted. Xiao Chun did not want demonic beast blood essence that was too low level. Moreover, even if he cultivated it, the power of the beast transformation would be limited and would not be of much use. As for high-level demonic beast blood essence, Xiao Chun had no way of obtaining it. As a result, for over 3 months, although he had already memorized the beast transformation manual, he had not cultivated it. Flipping through it in boredom, according to Xiao Chen's thoughts, since this secret technique was so strange, it would at least require level 5 demonic beast blood essence. However, where could he find a level 5 demonic beast? Moreover, even if he could find one, how could he be a match for it? He felt helpless in his heart. However, at this moment, Chunling had unknowingly woken up. He snatched the beast transformation manual from Xiao Chen's hands and casually flipped through it. This secret technique is not bad. It is very strong. As long as there is enough demonic beast blood essence, this secret technique can be said to have no limit. Its strength is completely dependent on the level of the demonic beast blood essence. Even Chunling, who was the reincarnation of an ancient almighty, was full of praise after flipping through the beast transformation manual. However, after hearing his words, Xiao Chun unhappily replied, "You make it sound so simple. Where can I find high-level demonic beast blood essence? That's why I said that you don't know how lucky you are. Here, isn't this guy's demonic beast blood essence a treasure? Use it. I guarantee that you will not be disappointed." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chunling casually threw the beast transformation manual back to Xiao Chun. Then, he smiled and pointed at Little Green. "Use Little Green's blood essence." After hearing Chunling's words, Xiao Chun was also stunned. That's right, why didn't I think of that? However, after thinking about it, Little Green was only a level 2 demonic beast. How big could its blood essence be? He looked at Little Green doubtfully. Then he turned his head and asked Chunling, "Do you know what kind of demonic beast Little Green is?" Previously, he had also looked through ancient books. However, it was a pity that there was no demonic beast that could match Little Green. Facing Xiao Chen's question, Chunling pretended to smile mysteriously and said, "Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Believe me, just use it. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Chunling was unwilling to reveal it. Seeing this, Xiao Chun unhappily replied, "Have you heard of a saying? If you pretend to be something, you will be struck by lightning. Humph, then let the storm come more violently." Chunling laughed. Since Chunling was unwilling to say anything, Xiao Chun did not ask anymore. He continued to look at Little Green. Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Little Green, can we discuss something? Lend me 30 to 40 pounds of blood essence. Let me practice the secret technique." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Little Chen's eyes were filled with evil. It continuously retreated until it was forced into a corner by Xiao Chun. In the end, Little Green was unable to escape from Xiao Chen's evil claws. Grabbing Little Green, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will be very gentle. I won't hurt you. Just a little will do. Little Green, you dare to bite me. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 99. Forced into a corner, Little Green hardened its heart and viciously bit Xiao Chun. Then, using this opportunity, Little Green fled far away from Xiao Chen's grasp. It looked at Xiao Chun as if it was facing a great enemy, and its mouth continuously roared as if it was cursing Xiao Chun. "Little guy, you actually dare to bite me. All right, let's see how I'll deal with you when I catch you," Xiao Chun said angrily as he looked at Little Green with a small wound on his finger. Then, a man and a snake began to chase each other in the cave. At first, Xiao Chen's heart was filled with anger, but as time passed, his anger gradually turned into helplessness. This was because Little Green was really too difficult to catch. It was as slippery as a loach. Unable to catch it, Xiao Chun had no choice but to give up in the end. After a series of cajoling and cheating, Xiao Chun finally used all the spirit stones he had as the price to exchange for Little Green's essence blood. His heart was bleeding. A total of 50,000 low-grade spirit stones. This was all he had, and now he could only give it to Little Green. Looking at Little Green's happy face as it swallowed the spirit stones, Xiao Chun looked at the essence blood in his hand and thought fiercely, "If this essence blood is not domineering, I will have suffered a great loss." Although Xiao Chun was unable to ascertain the exact state of Little Green's essence blood, he still chose to believe in Chun Ling, ignoring Little Green, who was gobbling up spirit stones. Xiao Chun swallowed Little Green's essence blood in one gulp and then began to refine it according to the requirements of the secret beast transformation technique. What made Xiao Chun feel strange was that according to the beastification secret technique, refining the essence blood of a demonic beast would take at most a few days. However, after 3 days, Xiao Chun had only refined 1/5 of the essence blood. Little Green's essence blood was extremely difficult to refine. Now, they had already hidden here for 3 days, and Chun Ling's injuries had already healed. It was obvious that there was no more time for Xiao Chun to refine. The two of them had to break through the encirclement as soon as possible. Otherwise, people from various factions would find this place sooner or later. At that time, it would be like catching a turtle in a jar. He had no choice but to temporarily give up on refining Little Qing's blood essence. They began to discuss the escape route. According to what Chun Ling had said, it was almost impossible to leave the 10,000 Beast Mountain range from the front. In order to capture him, all the major forces in the Eastern Sun region had mobilized. Even the core elders of the Dao Querying Realm had participated in the hunt. Therefore, it was impossible for him to break through the encirclement from the front. Therefore, there was only one way, which was to go deep into the All-Beast Mountain range. In other words, he had to pass through the All-Beast Mountain range and head to the Central Divine Domain. As long as he reached the Central Plains, he would be safe. Crossing the All-Beast Mountain range? If anyone heard their conversation, they would definitely curse them for being crazy. Even Dao validation experts wouldn't dare to cross the All-Beast Mountain range. The two of them, who were only at the Mystic Ian realm, actually dared to cross the All-Beast Mountain range. If this wasn't crazy, then what was? What was even more unacceptable was that after some discussion, the two of them actually agreed to this method. They decided to pass through the All-Beast Mountain range and head to the Central Divine Domain. Lunatics, absolute lunatics. Of course, the two of them had no choice. Compared to the experts of the major forces, passing through the All-Beast Mountain range seemed stupid, but it was also the only way. In a situation of certain death, the two of them had to fight for a slim chance of survival. After making the decision, the two of them immediately began to move. They had already been delayed for 3 days, and this place was probably not safe anymore. They had to leave this place before they were discovered and head straight for the depths of the All-Beast Mountain range. "Little Qing, let's go." Xiao Chen called out to Little Qing, who was sleeping soundly. Hearing Xiao Chen's voice, Little Qing sleepily opened her eyes and then reluctantly wrapped herself around Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chun then walked out of the cave. Following behind Xiao Chun, Chun Ling suddenly said, "Xiao Chun, why did you come?" He was in danger, and even the former sect, the Blood Demon Palace, had chosen to capture him because they coveted his inheritance. At this time, Xiao Chun had appeared and chosen to wade into this muddy water with him without hesitation. Chun Ling was touched. Hearing his words, Xiao Chun turned around and said with a serious expression, "I don't have many friends. If you wanted to give a reason, it's because we are brothers. If a brother is in trouble and I'm not there, what will you do?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chun Ling was stunned. "Because we are brothers." This sentence kept ringing in his ears. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, Xiao Chun was the first person to say this to him. Looking at Xiao Chun, tears gathered in his eyes. Seeing that Chun Ling was about to burst into tears, Xiao Chun punched Qinling's chest and scolded jokingly. F***CK, are you going to cry now? Haha, the famous heavenly blade Qinling of the Eastern Sun region is actually crying. Scram, who's crying? I'm just squinting my eyes because of the sand. After being teased by Xiao Chun, Qinling held back his tears and replied without showing any weakness. The two of them played for a while. Finally, the smile on Xiao Chen's face disappeared and his eyes flashed with determination. He looked out of the cave and said, "Let's go. Today, we brothers will enter the dragon's lair." Okay. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the smile on Qinling's face slowly disappeared and he nodded slightly. Then, the two of them slowly walked out of the cave. Coincidentally, just as the two of them walked out of the cave, a group of inner disciples of the 10,000 Immortals Tower happened to walk over. The two sides met and looked at each other. For a moment, the leader of the 10,000 Immortals Tower was happy at first. Then he said in surprise, "Xiao Chun, why are you here?" Looking at the group of 10,000 Immortals Tower disciples, there were a total of 8 people. Xiao Chun sneered and said, "Me? If I say that I happened to pass by, would you believe me?" Xiao Chun, no matter why you are here, I advise you to leave quickly. Although you are one of the 10 great prided kings, this matter is already out of your control. Leave Qinling behind, and you can leave. Don't make things difficult for yourself. After hearing Xiao Chen's reply, the leader of the 10,000 Immortals Tower disciples coldly said. Knowing Xiao Chen's identity, he did not choose to attack immediately. However, just because they did not attack, it did not mean that Xiao Chen would not attack. Currently, the entire outer area of the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range was filled with experts searching for Qinling. If this dragged on, it would be even more difficult for him to escape. Withdrawing his smile, Xiao Chun unsheathed his scarlet heaven sword and coldly laughed. "Scram, why are you spouting so much nonsense when you want to kill my brother? Die." Following his words, Xiao Chun took the initiative to attack, with Qinling following closely behind. The two of them took the initiative to attack. Facing the 8 inner disciples of the 10,000 Immortals Tower, Xiao Chun and Qinling used their killing moves from the start, wanting to end the battle in the shortest time possible. During this time, Little Qing did not stay idle. Although Little Qing was usually a glutton, her battle strength was absolutely incomparably powerful and was not much weaker than Xiao Chun. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 100. The two of them and the snake took the initiative to attack. Regardless of whether it was Xiao Chun or Qinling, their battle prowess was absolutely invincible among those of the same level. Moreover, Qinling had now awakened the memories of his previous life, and his battle prowess had increased by quite a bit. He was no longer weaker than Xiao Chun, and this was because Qinling's cultivation had not recovered, and he was still unable to use many of his techniques. The 8 inner disciples were quickly killed by Xiao Chun and the others. After killing the 8 inner disciples, the 2 men and the snake didn't stop. They continued moving towards the depths of the Wan Shou mountain range. It was impossible to break through the encirclement from the front. Even if they managed to escape from the Wan Shou mountain range, so what? As long as they were in the Dongyang region, Qinling would be chased by all the influential groups. The best way was to go to the central region. There was still a long way to go from there to the depths of the Wan Shou mountain range. They had to be careful of many strong cultivators. They could deal with ordinary inner disciples, but if they encountered celestial beings or querying path cultivators, they wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, they had to be very careful. Therefore, the 2 men and the snake didn't move very fast. Along the way, Xiao Chun and Yi Futian evaded the experts of many forces. Even so, Xiao Chun and Yi Futian were besieged several times over the past 3 days. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that the 2 of them had narrowly escaped death each time. They had been on the road for 3 days, but on this day, Xiao Chun and the others were surrounded again. The leader of the group was Mu Qing, one of the 5 hidden dragons of the Danyang region. There were a total of 5 disciples of the myriad immortal tower. Apart from Mu Qing, there were 4 inner disciples of the myriad immortal tower blocking Xiao Chen's path. When Mu Qing saw Xiao Chen, extreme killing intent burst out from her eyes, and she shouted coldly, "Xiao Chen, it's you again." Her hatred for Xiao Chen was off the charts. Facing Mu Qing's cold stare, Xiao Chen sneered and said, "Mu Qing, last time at the Qing clan, the leader of the Wansho mountain range had taken Mu Qing away, and the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds didn't want them to stay. Therefore, Xiao Chen didn't kill Mu Qing. Now that they had met again, Xiao Chen was filled with killing intent. Without saying anything, Xiao Chen rushed towards Mu Qing. At the same time, Chunling followed closely behind, blocking the 4 inner disciples of the Wansho mountain range for Xiao Chen. Mu Qing had originally intended to stall for time, but she had already been defeated by Xiao Chen again and again. To be honest, when facing Xiao Chen, Mu Qing had a trace of fear in her heart. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen didn't give Mu Qing any chance to delay. Since they had encountered each other here, he naturally had to deal with them directly. How could he let Mu Qing delay until the experts of the myriad immortal tower arrived? Mu Qing lashed out with the red cloud sword in hand. Mu Qing dared not take Xiao Chen's attack head-on and chose to evade instead. Mu Qing's fear of Xiao Chen was completely revealed in just one encounter. She didn't even have the courage to face him head-on. She only had one thought in her mind, and that was to drag things out until the experts of the myriad immortal tower arrived. At that time, Xiao Chen would naturally be nothing to worry about. Mu Qing dodged repeatedly, but even so, he was soon at a disadvantage. Back in the 100 Spirits graveyard, Xiao Chen defeated him with a single sword strike. Now, Mu Qing was even more afraid of Xiao Chen. "Mu Qing, I've given you a chance since the 100 Spirits graveyard. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. Today, the Myriad Beast Mountain Range will be the place where you die," Xiao Chen said indifferently with a calm expression. As soon as he finished speaking, he performed the golden killing swordsmanship. A golden sword light flashed past. Mu Qing was in disbelief as the sword light slashed across his neck and his head flew into the air. Xiao Chen killed Mu Qing with a single sword strike in just over 10 moves. Mu Qing probably didn't expect that his life would end in such a way. They were both geniuses, but as time passed and everyone grew, Mu Qing was gradually pulled apart by Xiao Chen. Now, Mu Qing was no longer a threat to Xiao Chen. Killing him was a piece of cake. After killing Mu Qing with a single sword strike, Chunling also finished off the 4 disciples of the Wansho mountain range. The 2 of them once again rushed forward. It had to be said that along the way, Xiao Chen was also a little surprised by the number of people who surrounded Chunling. Almost all the forces in the Eastern Sun region had joined in. It seemed like they were certain that Chunling had the greatest inheritance of the 100 Spirits graveyard. To be honest, the greatest inheritance of the 100 Spirits graveyard was something that even the forces in the Middle Earth Divine region would be tempted by. They were careful along the way and had already traveled for 7 days. They were only 1 day away from the core area of the Myriad Beast Mountain Range. However, Xiao Chen and Chunling had no choice but to stop because in 7 days, Xiao Chen's Little Qing's bloodline was about to be completely refined. They were only 1 step away from completely refining Little Qing's bloodline. At this critical moment, Xiao Chen obviously couldn't continue on their journey. They had no choice but to find a secluded place to stop. Chunling guarded Xiao Chen while Xiao Chen did his best to refine Little Qing's bloodline. He used all his strength to refine Little Qing's bloodline in his body. The power of the bloodline constantly fused with Xiao Chen's flesh and blood. For a moment, Xiao Chen seemed to hear the roars of a demon beast. It was the first time Xiao Chen had heard such a roar. It was different from the roars of other demon beasts. It was as if the mountains and rivers would collapse under the roar. 2 hours, 4 hours, and 6 hours later, Xiao Chen was finally able to completely refine the power of Little Qing's bloodline. As such, Xiao Chen had basically mastered the secret method of shape-shifting. With just a thought, Xiao Chun would be able to transform into a beast like Chun Man had done back then, and his combat prowess would be greatly enhanced. Both of them slowly opened their eyes. They had finally succeeded. They could not wait to test out the strength of Little Qing's bloodline. However, such thoughts only flashed through their minds for a moment. They had already wasted 6 hours of time. Before entering the core area of the Myriad Beast Mountain Range, the two of them could not afford to be careless. If they were caught by a Heaven Tier or Dao Querying Realm expert, it would be difficult for them to escape. Without much hesitation, they saw that Xiao Chun had woken up. The two of them and the snake prepared to continue on their journey. However, at this moment, a cold laugh suddenly sounded. They saw a Blood Demon Palace deacon striding over from afar. He shouted from afar, "Chunling, come back with me." It was a deacon of the Blood Demon Hall with an Earth Mirror cultivation base. Xiao Chun and Chunling's expressions turned grave when they saw this person. Along the way, the two of them had deliberately avoided the experts of the various major forces. Who would have thought that they would be blocked by an Earth Mirror deacon here? Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 101. With a few flashes, he arrived before Xiao Chun and Chunling naturally. Chunling knew the identity of this Blood Demon Palace attendant. He was an inner attendant of the Blood Demon Palace. Additionally, he was one of the strongest people within the Blood Demon Palace, possessing a cultivation base at the perfect Earth Mirror stage. Xiao Chun and Chunling were both at the Minor Profound Eon stage. A Minor Profound Eon stage cultivator against a perfect Earth Mirror stage cultivator. Anyone could see that they had no chance of winning. However, Chunling's expression only changed slightly in the beginning. Soon, he recovered. It was as though he had a way to deal with this person. Xiao Chun, this matter has nothing to do with you. Obediently withdraw from the All-Beast Mountain Range, and we will not stop you. Otherwise, there are many Yao Beasts within the All-Beast Mountain Range. If you die to a Yao Beast, even if 9 Firmament Palace asks about it, we will have an excuse. The attendant's gaze fell upon Xiao Chun, the threat in his words undisguised. At present, the East Sword Pavilion had become 9 Firmament Palace's heavenly sword peak. Many forces within the Eastern Sun region knew about this. Thus, no one would dare to openly attack Xiao Chun. However, if Xiao Chun were to die to a Yao Beast, what could 9 Firmament Palace say? Hearing the attendant's words, before Xiao Chun could say anything, Chunling, who was beside him, spoke up first. Xiao Chun, do you want to test Xiao Qing's bloodline power? The two of them understood each other very well. Hearing Chunling's words, Xiao Chun immediately understood what he meant. Beast transformation. Chunling's meaning was clear. If he wanted to deal with this attendant, he would have to utilize the secret beast transformation technique. Without hesitation, after nodding slightly, Xiao Chun directly used the beast transformation mystic method. In an instant, the bloodline power in his body became violent, and Xiao Chun's aura began to rise continuously. At the same time, around Xiao Chun, a 2-meter-long dragon-shaped phantom condensed by his own spiritual power slowly emerged, constantly circling around Xiao Chun. Although the cyan dragon's silhouette looked very ethereal, it was indeed a dragon. It circled around Xiao Chun as if it was protecting Xiao Chun. Under the encirclement of the cyan dragon's silhouette, Xiao Chun's aura reached a terrifying level. It was no weaker than the Earth Mirror's deacon in front of him. The deacon's expression changed slightly. He didn't know what kind of secret technique Xiao Chun had used, but Xiao Chun's cultivation had actually risen from the initial profound Eon realm to the consummate Earth Clear realm. Xiao Chun's cultivation had risen by more than an entire realm. He was horrified. How could this be? What kind of secret technique in the world could allow someone to raise their cultivation by more than one major realm? This was simply beyond the deacon's understanding. Not only him, but even Xiao Chun was filled with astonishment. This was indeed too exaggerated. The same secret technique, but the difference between him and Xiao Chun was like the difference between heaven and earth. The source of all this was probably the bloodline power from different demonic beasts. Xiao Chun used Little Qing's bloodline power to cultivate the beast transformation mystic method, and it could raise his cultivation by more than an entire realm. Just how powerful was Little Qing's bloodline power? Of course, Xiao Chun didn't know that because his cultivation was still too low, he couldn't withstand more bloodline power. Otherwise, the power of Little Qing's bloodline power would be far more powerful than this. Feeling an enormous power that he had never felt before filling his body, Xiao Chun was confident that with his current state, he could definitely kill this Blood Demon Hall Deacon. With his confidence greatly boosted, Chunling said at the same time, "Xiao Chun, you don't have much time. Don't hold back and finish him off." He didn't explain much and only told Xiao Chun not to waste time. After hearing Chunling's words, although he was full of doubts, Xiao Chun still chose to listen to him. He took a step forward, unsheathed the Scarlet Heaven sword, and attacked the Blood Demon Hall Deacon before him. Xiao Chun didn't hold back at all. Along with Xiao Chun's attack, the green dragon shadow that coiled around Xiao Chun let out a loud dragon roar. Seeing that Xiao Chun was coming right at him, the deacon did not dare to be careless at all. He summoned his earth weapon and shouted coldly at Xiao Chun, "Humph! As long as I delay you, the strong ones will arrive. By then, no matter how heaven-defying you are, you can only surrender obediently. Xiao Chun, there's a path to heaven, but you chose to barge into hell. You asked for it." Facing the domineering Xiao Chun, the deacon no longer fantasized about anything else. He only wanted to stall for time and wait for the strong ones in the Sky Realm or Dao Querying Realm to arrive. Wielding a long saber, the two of them immediately clashed. Dust flew everywhere as the saber and sword clashed. The terrifying pressure forced Chunling and Little Qing to retreat. Remembering Chunling's advice, Xiao Chun didn't hold back at all. After all, his current strength was brought about by the beast transformation secret technique. If the battle dragged on for too long, the side effects of the secret technique would take effect, and he would no longer have the strength to fight. Golden Kill sword technique, Red Flame sword technique, and various other sword techniques emerged. Xiao Chun only had one goal, and that was to finish off the Blood Demon Palace Deacon in the shortest time possible. Xiao Chun wanted to end this battle in the shortest time possible, even if he was injured in exchange for his life. As a result, the deacon naturally fell into a disadvantageous position. He didn't dare to risk his life against Xiao Chun. Of course, there was no reason for him to risk his life against Xiao Chun. No matter how you looked at it, he could afford to stall for time, but Xiao Chun couldn't. He chose to defend and dodge from beginning to end. However, with the support of the beast transformation secret technique, Xiao Chun's combat strength was too strong. Especially the green dragon shadow that circled Xiao Chun, it was even more difficult for the deacon to deal with. He originally thought that it was just a dragon-shaped shadow, but who would have thought that the dragon shadow actually had the ability to attack? The sharp dragon claws had already left several bloody wounds on the deacon's body. Some of the wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. It was as if he was fighting one against two. Not only did he have to face Xiao Chun, he also had to be careful of the green dragon shadow at all times. Under such circumstances, the deacon naturally couldn't hold on for too long. In less than 100 breaths of time, the deacon already had the thought of retreating. He wasn't Xiao Chun's match, and it was even difficult for him to stall for time. If the battle continued, he would probably die here. With the thought of retreating in his heart, the deacon was straightforward. With a flash, he directly retreated to the back. Seeing this, Xiao Chun prepared to chase after him. However, after just a few dozen meters, an intense pain instantly engulfed Xiao Chun's entire body. The green dragon shadow slowly dissipated, and Xiao Chun directly fell to the ground in pain. After struggling for a while, he fell unconscious. 120 breaths of time. Is his cultivation still too weak? He can't withstand the power of the dragon clan's bloodline. In the next second, Chunling arrived in front of Xiao Chun and carried the unconscious Xiao Chun on his back. He sighed softly and then rushed forward in a flash. As for Little Qing, she followed closely behind. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 102. Xiao Chun was completely unable to withstand the power of Little Qing's bloodline. He only lasted for 120 breaths before he fell into a coma. If the deacon of the Blood Demon Palace was present at this moment, he would probably be so angry that he would vomit blood. He did not need to do much. As long as he could hold on for 3 more breaths, Xiao Chun would no longer be able to fight. Unfortunately, he was scared out of his wits and ran away. Carrying Xiao Chun on his back, Chun Ling and Little Green dealt with all the encirclements they encountered along the way. However, the closer they got to the core area, the fewer people there were. They only needed another 4 hours to enter the core area of the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. As long as they escaped there, even Dao Confirmation Realm experts would not dare to enter easily, because there were Beast Kings that could transform. However, just as Chun Ling was running, the major forces that entered the 10,000 Beast Mountain range also knew that they were escaping to the depths of the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. In an instant, the big shots of the 10,000 Immortals House, Blood Demon Palace, Leshan Prefecture, and Fire Cloud Sect issued orders at the same time, asking everyone to rush to the depths of the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. They swore to stop Chun Ling outside the core area and not let him enter. His whereabouts could be said to have been exposed. However, in this final stretch, Chun Ling did not have the time to hide. Now, he only needed to rush into the core area in one breath. Then, he could temporarily relax. As for the powerful monsters in the core area, he could only take one step at a time. Charging all the way, but following the orders of the big shots, Chun Ling encountered several encirclements in the following period of time. There's a cliff in the west. Force them to the west. With the command of a Heaven-tier elite, the people of the various major forces temporarily joined forces, wanting to force Chun Ling to the west. That was because there was a cliff there that separated the outer region from the core region. As long as they could force them there, Chun Ling would definitely have no chance of escaping. With the command of a Heaven Realm expert, the people of the major forces did not fight to the death with Chun Ling. They only blindly forced Chun Ling to the west cliff. There was no need to capture Chun Ling. Anyway, when the time came, there would be experts coming. These were not things they should be concerned about. Chun Ling had never been so deep into the 10,000 Beast Mountain range before, so he didn't know their intentions. Only when Chun Ling arrived in front of the western cliff did he understand their intentions. The bottomless cliff was like a natural moat between the outer region and the core region. If they wanted to pass through this place, they would have to cross this heavenly tribulation. However, they were only at the Mystic Yuan stage and could not cross this cliff at all. Chun Ling had been forced into a dead end. Standing at the edge of the cliff, Chun Ling looked at the disciples from the various forces who were crowding over. No Dao querying realm expert had appeared yet. Moreover, because Chun Ling had been forced into a dead end, the crowd was not in a hurry. After all, to them, he could not escape. Chun Ling, just give up. You have no way out. Chun Ling, come to the Leshan Prefecture. I can guarantee you that the Leshan Prefecture will not harm you. Nonsense. Chun Ling is a disciple of the Blood Demon Hall. You should follow me back to the Blood Demon Hall. The crowd spoke one after another. They were already arguing about the ownership of Chun Ling. One had to know that the reason why they had surrounded Chun Ling with such great fanfare was because of the ancient inheritance on Chun Ling. Now that they were about to succeed, they naturally would not let Chun Ling fall into the hands of other forces. The crowd was arguing endlessly. At this time, Chun Ling had already retreated to the edge of the cliff with Xiao Chun on his back. If he took another step back, he would fall off the cliff and shatter into pieces. Chun Ling's eyes emitted rays of cold light as he looked at the crowd. His mind was rapidly thinking of a way to escape. There was no way out. Once the Heaven Realm and Dao querying realm experts of the major forces arrived, there would really be no way out. He could not think of a way to escape. At this time, the unconscious Xiao Chun slowly opened his eyes and said to Chun Ling in a weak voice, "Jump. There is still a chance of survival if you jump down. If you're caught by them, you will die without a doubt. Even if you tell them the truth, they will not let you live." Xiao Chun had already woken up just now. It was just that his body was weak, and he could not even open his eyes. However, Xiao Chun clearly heard the conversation between the crowd and understood the current situation. Therefore, when Xiao Chun opened his mouth, he directly asked Chunling to jump off the cliff. This was the only way out. Since he would die either way, he might as well jump down. Perhaps a miracle would appear? One had to know that if Chunling was caught by the people of the major forces, he would definitely not have a way out. Even if Chunling told them that he was the reincarnation of an ancient almighty, the people of the major forces would not let Chunling go. Since he had already offended them, they naturally would not give Chunling a chance to take revenge. This was something that anyone would do. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chunling exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said, "Brother, actually, there's no need for you to stop. Even if I want to leave now, do you think they will agree? Enough nonsense. Let's jump together." Knowing what Chunling wanted to say, Xiao Chun immediately interrupted him the moment he opened his mouth. It was already impossible for him to escape. At this time, even if Xiao Chun was willing to leave, the people of the major forces would not allow it. Although they would not dare to kill him openly, this was the All-Beast mountain range. When the time came, they could say that he died in the mouth of a demon beast. What could Nine Firmament's palace say? Moreover, even if he could leave, Xiao Chun could not leave Chunling behind. If he could, Xiao Chun would not have come in the first place. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Chunling smiled bitterly. However, a look of determination quickly flashed across his eyes. He slowly said to Xiao Chun, "Let's go all out. Son of a bitch, I don't believe that we brothers will be so unlucky." After saying that, Chunling fell backwards, bringing Xiao Chun and Little Qing with him as he jumped down the cliff. The people from the major forces, who were originally arguing about who Chunling belonged to, were all dumbfounded when they saw this scene. They had assumed that Chunling had no way out. Who would have thought that Chunling would choose to jump down the cliff? The cliff was at least 10,000 zhang high. It was so deep that they could not see the bottom. They all rushed to the edge of the cliff to look down. However, Xiao Chun and Little Qing were no longer there. Damn it, these two lunatics. Many people cursed angrily. Just as everyone was cursing, the Sky Human stage and Dao Querying stage experts from the major forces rushed over. When they heard that Chunling and Xiao Chun had chosen to jump down the cliff, their faces turned ashen. Subsequently, the Dao Querying stage experts personally entered the bottom of the cliff to find the two of them. Unfortunately, the cliff was very strange. Even Dao Querying stage experts had no way of entering the bottom of the cliff. After working hard for so long, they still could not find Chunling. The group of Dao Querying stage experts burned with anger. It was also at this moment that a terrifying aura appeared. Song Xian's figure appeared in the sky. The moment he appeared, he shouted coldly at everyone present. "Where's my disciple, Xiao Chun? Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 103. Song Xian appeared, and his aura soared into the sky without holding back. After knowing that Xiao Chun had come to rescue Chunling, Song Xian had rushed over immediately. However, he was still a step too late. Song Xian's cultivation had already reached the half-step Dao Gate realm. Everyone's expression changed when they saw Song Xian's aura. They couldn't help but glance at the bottomless abyss. Xiao Chun and Chunling had jumped into the abyss together. However, no one dared to speak in front of Song Xian for fear of angering him. No one answered. Song Xian casually grabbed a middle-aged man with earth mirror cultivation into the air. He looked coldly at the man and asked, "Speak, where is my disciple, Xiao Chun?" He jumped down. The middle-aged man didn't dare to lie in the face of Song Xian's questioning. He immediately answered Song Xian's question truthfully. "Jump down?" Song Xian's expression changed when he heard the man's answer. He ignored him and tossed him aside. The man fell heavily and immediately fainted from his serious injuries. In a flash, he charged into the bottomless abyss. However, like the group of Dao Querying realm experts before him, Song Xian was unable to reach the bottom of the abyss. However, after some investigation, Song Xian discovered that there were many ancient seals in this bottomless abyss. It It was these seals that prevented him from reaching the bottom of the abyss. Returning without success and unable to confirm Xiao Qin's fate, Song Xian returned to the edge of the abyss. Looking at the cultivators present, the anger in his eyes burned brighter and brighter. "If anything happens to my disciple, all of you will die today." His killing intent was already overflowing. Upon hearing Song Xian's words, the expressions of everyone present changed slightly. However, at this moment, the sect master of the Fire Cloud sect, the Myriad Immortal Tower, the Lesan Prefecture, and the Hall Master of the Blood Demon Hall appeared at the same time and spoke to Song Xian one after another. "Song Xian, Xiao Chun asked for it. You can't blame others." "That's right. Even if your East Sword Pavilion is now Nine Cloud Palace's Heavenly Sword Peak, you can't be arrogant. Nine Cloud Palace isn't the only profound sky continent. Don't treat the other rulers as air." The four of them spoke one after another. Anyone could tell that Song Xian was on the verge of exploding. If he was allowed to attack, at least half of the people present would die. That was why the four of them stepped forward to stop him. However, Song Xian completely ignored their words. One day, above the bottomless abyss, Song Xian single-handedly fought the sect masters of the four great sections. Relying on his half-step Dao Gate cultivation, Song Xian fought against four great perfect Dao validation experts. After a fierce battle, both sides suffered heavy losses. It would be very difficult for Song Xian to take down the four sect masters in a 1 versus 4 situation. Moreover, Xiao Qin's fate was still unknown. The best thing to do now was to return to Nine Cloud Palace and ask the Dao Transformations experts to break the seal of the bottomless abyss and rescue Xiao Chun. Thinking of this, Song Xian and the four great sect masters stopped at the same time. But before leaving, Song Xian coldly shouted to everyone present, "If anything happens to my disciple Xiao Chun, this old man will not let this matter go." Song Xian left after saying that. He had to hurry to Nine Cloud Palace and asked the Dao Transformation experts to break the seal. After Song Xian left, the four great sect masters went into the abyss and tried to break the seal. However, they didn't succeed either. In the end, except for a small number of people who refused to give up and continue to wait here, the rest returned to their sects and families. 3 days passed, but there was still no sign of Xiao Chun and Chun Ling. The major forces thought that the two of them must be dead and chose to leave the Thousand Beast Mountain range. At the same time, at the bottom of the abyss, a rapid underground river surged. Judging from its direction, it seemed to flow directly into the depths of the Thousand Beast Mountain range. At this time, downstream of the river, Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Little Qing were unconscious. Their bodies were washed to the shore by the river. 3 days had passed. Xiao Chun coughed lightly, and then slowly opened his eyes. Xiao Chun only remembered that the three of them jumped off the cliff. He couldn't remember what happened after that. He shook his dizzy head. When he saw Chun Ling and Little Qing, Xiao Chun quickly went to them. After checking and confirming that they were still alive, Xiao Chun breathed a sigh of relief. He took out healing pills from his storage ring and fed them to the two of them. After that, Xiao Chun sat down cross-legged and healed himself while waiting for the two of them to wake up. Another day passed, and Chun Ling and Lil Qing woke up. After knowing that they were still alive, the two of them were overjoyed. "Where's this place? We should be in the depths of the Thousand Beast Mountain range, right?" They didn't act rashly. After healing their injuries, the three of them prepared to move out. However, before that, they had to figure out where they were. Xiao Chun said. Hearing this, Chun Ling said, "That should be the case. This river probably flows from the cliff to here. We were brought here by the river. We should be in the depths of the Thousand Life Mountain range." They couldn't pinpoint exactly where they were. However, after some investigation, Xiao Chun found that the three of them were in a valley. It could also be called a basin. The area was huge, like a huge bowl embedded in the ground. There were tall mountains all around. If they wanted to leave this place, they had to find an exit. However, Xiao Chun and the others didn't know that there was only one exit to this valley. At this moment, at the only exit, there were at least a few hundred monster beasts gathered. These monster beasts were basically all young monster beasts. However, they were already rank 2 monster beasts, equivalent to human mysterious origin realm warriors. Moreover, in front of these young monster beasts, there were more than 10 terrifying rank 8 monster beasts. Rank 8 monster beasts were equivalent to human Tao transformation realm warriors. They were just one step away from becoming monster kings and could transform. Monster kings were the kings of all monster beasts that had already surpassed the Tao transformation realm. However, at this moment, in front of these rank 8 monster beasts, there were 3 middle-aged men standing in the air. The tyrannical aura emitted from their bodies was clearly different from that of humans. In other words, these 3 people were monster kings that could transform. There were 3 beast kings, more than 10 level 8 monsters, and hundreds of level 2 cubs. So many monsters had gathered here. They were all from the monster kingdom in the 1,000 Beast Mountain range. Today was the day for the cubs of the monster kingdom to train. The location of their trials was in the valley where Xiao Chun and the others were. It would last for a month. After the trials began, the entire valley would be sealed. Many young monster beasts would fight within. Only the last 100 young monster beasts would be able to pass this trial. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 104. Hundreds of young beasts killing each other. This was the training method of the monster kingdom. Compared to humans, beasts were obviously more brutal and direct, and they worshipped strength more. In the human world, even if you were born a cripple, your parents would still choose to love you. However, it was different in the world of beasts. The weak beasts did not even have the right to survive and could only become food in the mouths of other beasts. The strong preyed on the weak. This was developed to the extreme in the world of beasts. If you were not strong enough, you deserved to become food in the stomach of others. Such a cruel law of survival may be difficult for humans to accept, but it was normal for beasts because they received such education from a young age. It was also because of this that beasts were much more brutal than humans. However, don't think that humans are good just because of this. Compared to demonic beasts, humans are actually not much less savage and tyrannical. Backstabbing, brothers killing each other, are these kinds of things rare in the human world? Or rather, were their methods better than beasts? In many cases, the methods of humans were much more brutal than beasts. However, humans were good at using hypocritical appearances to deceive the world and themselves. On the other hand, beasts mostly followed their instincts. Accompanied by the roars of beasts, hundreds of young beasts rushed into the valley. Then, a layer of barrier rose at the entrance of the valley, completely sealing the valley. The beasts' roars shook the sky. Xiao Chun and the other 2 who were in the valley naturally heard it. Judging from these beasts' roars, the number of beasts was definitely not small. In an instant, the 3 of them who were looking for the exit stopped in their tracks. Looking in the direction of the roars, Chun-Ling whispered to himself, "I have a bad feeling." Hearing Chun-Ling's words, Xiao Chun said. Xiao Chun did not know that the 3 of them had entered the training ground of the young beasts. However, his intuition told him that something bad was about to happen. As soon as they entered the valley, the young beasts began to kill each other. Of course, some of them who were more intelligent did not join the battle directly. Instead, they chose to hide temporarily. After all, the rule was that as long as they could last for a month and survive the slaughter of the young beasts, there were no other rules. A chaotic battle broke out. Those weak cubs were killed as soon as they entered the valley. The weakest batch of cubs were eliminated as soon as they arrived. Following the entrance of many young beasts, the valley became lively. Xiao Chun and the other 2 inevitably encountered their first young beast, a level 2 fire pattern leopard. It was known for its speed, and its bloodline was not bad. It could be considered a purebred bloodline among the leopard race. Normally, it would be very difficult to encounter one in the outskirts of the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. Upon seeing the fire rune leopard, Xiao Chun and the rest frowned. Chun-Ling even said, "A cub, He did not expect to meet a young fire rune leopard here. One had to know that an adult fire rune leopard was at least a class 5 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a human Dao querying realm expert. Xiao Chun and the rest looked at the fire rune leopard, and the fire rune leopard naturally looked at Xiao Chun and the rest. The strength of a demonic beast was determined by the strength of its bloodline. Just like the talent of a human warrior, the stronger the bloodline, the higher the potential of the demonic beast. At the same time, the intelligence of the demonic beast would also be higher. Therefore, even though it was only class 2, the intelligence of the fire rune leopard was already very high. Meeting Xiao Chun and Chunling, as well as Little Green, which it had never seen before, the fire rune leopard was filled with doubts. Both parties were surprised, but this was not important. This was because when demonic beasts and humans met, they would usually fight to the death. Therefore, with a roar, the fire rune leopard took the initiative to attack, pouncing towards Xiao Chun and Chunling. F***CK. Chunling, get it? Seeing the fire rune leopard's attack, Xiao Chun naturally did not think too much and ordered Chunling. Then, the two of them attacked and engaged in a fierce battle with the fire rune leopard. A class 2 demonic beast, the same as Xiao Chun and Chunling logically speaking, it should not be too difficult to deal with this fire rune leopard. However, after a fierce battle, Xiao Chun realized that this fire rune leopard's combat power was simply heaven-defying. How should he put it? In human terms, this fire rune leopard should be considered a genius among the demonic beasts. It had the strength to be invincible among those of the same class, and could even kill those of a higher class. Previously, they had underestimated this fire rune leopard's combat power, but that was it. The two of them combined could completely crush this fire rune leopard. Just as Xiao Chun and Chunling were about to kill it, Little Green suddenly appeared in front of the fire rune leopard. The power of the blood in her body suddenly erupted, and in an instant, the fire rune leopard, who was originally overflowing with killing intent, was completely suppressed. This was the suppression from the blood. In front of Little Green, the fire rune leopard could not resist at all. It obediently crawled in front of Little Green. After that, Xiao Chun and Little Green interrogated the fire rune leopard, and the fire rune leopard continuously growled. Little Green could not understand what they were saying. After all, Class 2 demonic beasts could not speak human language, so they used beast language to converse. After that, Little Green came in front of Little Green and pointed its tail at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun and Chunling were able to understand the meaning of Little Green's expression. After Little Green's strokes, they finally understood what was going on. Both of them revealed a bitter smile. It seemed that they had entered a training ground for many young demonic beasts. According to the fire rune leopard, this valley was a special training ground for young demonic beasts. Today was the start of the training, and many young demonic beasts had entered the valley. It was not that they did not know what was going on, but that they had somehow entered a training ground for young demonic beasts. Furthermore, according to the fire rune leopard, only pure-blooded young demonic beasts could participate. Those young demonic beasts with mixed bloodlines did not even have the right to participate. In other words, this training ground for young demonic beasts was similar to the training ground for geniuses. Just like the 100 Spirits Graveyard. Yes, just like the 100 Spirits Graveyard. The only difference was that the participants had changed from human demonic beasts to demonic beasts. Is this a competition between us and demonic beasts? Xiao Chun laughed helplessly and said self-deprecatingly, "There's no other way. According to what it said, the entire valley has been sealed off, and there are 3 demonic beasts guarding the entrance. We can only last for a month, and then think of a way to leave. Compared to the demonic beasts, I'm more willing to face demonic beasts, Chunling said after hearing Xiao Chun's words. It was temporarily impossible to leave. Not to mention that the entire valley had been sealed off. Even if it wasn't, they would still have to pass through the 3 demonic beasts to leave. Compared to facing the demonic beasts, Xiao Chun and Chunling were more willing to stay here with the demonic beasts for a month. Seeing a lot of brothers' messages about the update, Windless won't reply to them one by one here. I hope brothers can understand. Returning to the main topic, the update is mainly in two aspects. The first is the update time. This book is currently updated 3 times a day at noon, 4 in the afternoon, and 8 in the evening. As for why they don't update together, Windless won't hide it from the brothers. Because updating separately can increase the exposure rate. The editor's request, so brothers, please understand. In addition, Windless didn't have much to say about the update speed. After all, writing a book definitely can't catch up with reading. It would take at least an hour for Windless to write a chapter of 2,000 words. If you encounter a writer's block, the time would be infinitely extended, so please forgive me. However, Windless can guarantee the update time. Even if something happens, Windless will set a time to upload in advance, so as long as the time is up, there will definitely be an update. This way, the brothers won't have to wait impatiently. This is the only thing Windless can guarantee, and he will never go back on his words. In addition, if there are any brothers who are out of books, you can go and take a look at Windless' old book God Emperor, Demon Emperor. It definitely won't disappoint you brothers. In addition, at the end of the day, this book is already ranked 5th on the mobile QQ new book rankings. All of this is inseparable from the brother support. Here, Windless has an immature opinion, but I don't know if it's appropriate to say it. Brothers, let's work hard. Let's also go and get first place. Haha, the above is Windless' dream. Of course, the update is serious. Chapter 105. It was impossible to force their way into the territory guarded by the Beast King. Hence, Xiao Chun and Chunling could only stay in the valley for a month until the end of the trial. They would then find a chance to leave. If they had to stay there for a month, it would mean that Xiao Chun and the others would have to face many geniuses of the Beast Clan. However, Xiao Chun did not panic. On the contrary, he was rather excited. Compared to the geniuses of the human clan, how strong would the geniuses of the Beast Clan be? Other than the prodigies from the Middle-earth Divine Realm, Xiao Chun had fought against the prodigies from the other 4 Divine Realms. Now that he had the chance to witness the prodigies from the Beast Race, Xiao Chun could not help but feel excited. He glanced at the Fire Rune Leopard. At this moment, Little Green was lying lazily on top of the Fire Rune Leopard. Not only was the Fire Rune Leopard not angry, it even revealed a look of fear. It was becoming more and more interested in Little Green's identity. At the same level, a pure-blooded Fire Rune Leopard would not dare to be disrespectful to Little Green. From this, it could be seen that Little Green's bloodline was definitely superior to the Fire Rune Leopard's. In the world of beasts, bloodline determined everything. The nobler the bloodline, the higher the status. Unless the difference in strength between the two was huge, the one with the higher bloodline could completely suppress the other with the power of the bloodline. The Fire Rune Leopard had completely chosen to submit to Little Green. It was as if it was a great honor to be able to stay by Little Green's side. Without a choice, the Fire Rune Leopard naturally followed the group. However, what made Xiao Chun and Chunling speechless was that the Fire Rune Leopard was only respectful to Little Green and ignored the two of them. Stupid leopard, one day I will cook you. Chunling was very unhappy with the Fire Rune Leopard's attitude. However, after thinking about it, both of them were humans. Beasts were naturally hostile towards humans. Since they could not leave the valley, they could only stroll around. As time passed, more and more young beasts in the valley were willing to follow Little Green. Basically, as long as the young beasts had personally experienced the power of Little Green's bloodline, they would definitely not leave. They would shamelessly follow Little Green. In this way, half a month had passed, and Little Ching was followed by more than 100 young beasts. These young beasts were the purest young beasts in the kingdom of demon beasts. Mixed blood beasts were not qualified to come here. It had already become the king of these young beasts. Every day, it would lead a large number of young beasts, patrolling the entire valley with a proud expression. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. On this day, the few young beasts in the valley who did not submit to Little Green had gathered together. They were led by a second-rank wild lion to the place where Little Green and the others were. Wild lions were an extremely powerful tribe. At least in the heavenly Chun continent, they were considered the top bloodline of the beasts. The second-rank wild lion's identity was not simple in the Beast Kingdom. He was one of the 3 Beast Kings in the Beast Kingdom, the descendant of a Lion King. No matter if it was bloodline or identity, this wild lion was second only to Little Green in the entire valley. Of course, the gap between them was still huge. Today, this wild lion cub had led a group of demonic beasts here. It was obvious that it wanted to challenge Little Ching. Originally, with the power of Little Ching's bloodline, it could easily suppress the lion cub. However, after more than 20 days, Xiao Chun knew that the lion cub in front of him was recognized as the strongest in this trial. Therefore, Xiao Chun did not let Little Ching do anything. Instead, he wanted to personally test the lion cub. There are a total of 3 Beast Kings in the Beast Kingdom. The wild lion is the descendant of the Lion King. In human terms, the wild lion is equivalent to the 10 prides of the human clan. Xiao Chun thought to himself. He slowly walked in front of the wild lion and calmly said, "I will be your opponent." It could not speak the human language, but it could understand Xiao Chen's words. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the wild lion's eyes revealed a hint of fierceness, and it roared. Although it was still a cub, the wild lion's roar was already filled with the domineering aura of the lion clan. With a roar, the wild lion took the initiative to attack. Its sharp claws fiercely slapped at Xiao Chun. It had to be said that it was worthy of being the descendant of the Lion King. In the same realm, the fire leopard could not compare to the wild lion. No wonder it was unwilling to submit to Little Green. Facing the wild lion's attack, Xiao Chun unsheathed the Scarlet Heaven Sword and did not choose to dodge. He raised the Jian Yi sword and fiercely slashed at the wild lion's sharp claws. The powerful energy tore a crack in the ground, and this head-on collision was clearly evenly matched. Seeing this, the little lion put away the contempt in its heart. It was very smart, and, at the same time, its intuition was very sharp. With just one exchange, it knew that the human in front of it was not weak. On the contrary, he was very strong. Without the slightest contempt, the wild lion let out a roar. Its body gradually emitted a blood-red light. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with excitement. Bloodline ability. Some demonic beasts with high bloodline grades were born with bloodline ability, just like this little lion. It was using the bloodline ability of the Berserk Lion Clan, Berserk. This was the first time Xiao Chun had seen a monster's bloodline ability. He wanted to see it for himself. Immediately, he waved the Scarlet Heaven Sword in his hand and directly used the Golden Killing Sword technique. He took the initiative to attack the wild lion. Seeing this, the wild lion did not back down. The human and the lion immediately engaged in a fierce battle. It had to be said that after using Berserk, the wild lion's battle strength was greatly increased. Its eyes were scarlet, and its speed and strength had increased by a lot. Moreover, this was because it was still young. If it was allowed to grow up, the power of its bloodline would be completely awakened, and the power of Berserk would be even stronger. According to Xiao Chen's estimation, its strength was obviously higher than Gu Lei and Su Mu. It should be on par with the primordial age. The power of the bloodline was equivalent to a human's special constitution. After a fierce battle, Xiao Chen finally used the heavenly sword embryo and used the man and sword as one to defeat the wild lion. He heavily injured the wild lion with one strike, but did not take its life. After all, there was no enmity between them. He just wanted to see the strength of the Beast Clan's Heaven's Pride. It was not worthwhile to kill it. Secondly, the wild lion's identity was not ordinary. It was the descendant of the Lion Emperor. If he killed it, Xiao Chun and the other 2 would not be able to leave the All-Beast Mountain Range. Chapter 106. Xiao Qing did not kill the lion cub, but after the battle, Xiao Qing ruthlessly tortured the lion cub, causing it to lose its temper. In the end, it had no choice but to submit to Xiao Qing. Perhaps it was because the lion cub had injured Xiao Chun during the battle, but little Qing did not hold back at all. Xiao Chun was covered in wounds. In the end, he chose to submit. The lion cub fell into a deep sleep. It looked like it would need to rest for a few days. Since even the lion cub chose to surrender, the other cubs that came with it naturally chose to submit as well. In this way, all the cubs in the valley, except for those that were already dead, all of them submitted to Little Green. There were no more threats in the valley. In the next few days, the trial would end. Xiao Chun also planned to make a breakthrough in his cultivation in these few days. Originally, Xiao Chun was already at the initial stage of the mysterious Yuan stage. In addition to this period of cultivation, as well as refining the blood essence of demonic beasts every day for the past 20 days, his strength had naturally increased. He had reached the limit of the initial stage of the mysterious Yuan stage, and was only a step away from the advanced stage. He planned to raise his cultivation to the advanced stage of the mysterious Yuan stage before leaving the ancient mountain. As for cultivation resources, he did not need to worry about it. Not to mention the many pills in his storage ring. Just the blood essence of the cubs around him was enough for him to break through to the advanced stage of the mysterious Yuan stage. Human warriors could refine the blood essence of demonic beasts, and the blood essence of demonic beasts contained rich spiritual energy. Just like how demonic beasts could benefit from eating humans, humans could also benefit from refining the blood essence of demonic beasts. There was no need to worry about not having enough blood essence. He did not even need to take it himself. As long as he told Xiao Qing, there would naturally be cubs that would willingly give their blood essence to him. Xiao Chun planned to break through, and so did Qinling. After awakening the memories of his past life, his cultivation was not inferior to Xiao Chen's. No, it should be said that Xiao Chun was not inferior to Qinling. After all, as a reborn ancient almighty, Qinling's cultivation speed was naturally incomparable to that of ordinary people. However, Xiao Chun was still able to catch up to his cultivation speed. Just this point alone made Qinling admire Xiao Chen's talent. The two of them dug out 2 caves at the same time and chose to go into seclusion. Outside the cave, Little Qing led a group of young beasts to stand guard. In the valley, Xiao Chun was living a very comfortable life. The 10,000 beast mountain range, which was extremely dangerous to others, had become a paradise because of Little Qing. Xiao Chun began his cultivation retreat. On this day, Song Xian, who had rushed back to 9 Firmament Palace to get reinforcement from the cliff where the two of them had fallen, finally arrived with a Dao King Stage Elder. Moreover, the elder that Song Xian had invited was no ordinary elder, but a chief elder of Holy Maiden Peak. It was common knowledge that 9 Firmaments Palace was divided into 9 peaks. The elders of each peak were divided into ordinary elders and chief elders. Ordinary elders had to be at least at the Dao transformation stage before they were qualified to become chief elders. As for chief elders, they had to be at the Dao King stage. The Dao King stage was the stage above the Dao transformation stage. Thus, Song Xian and the other two, as the peak lords of Heavenly Sword Peak, had to reach the Dao transformation stage as soon as possible. Those words were not without reason. The ordinary elders of the other peaks were all at the Dao transformation stage, while the peak lords of Heavenly Sword Peak had yet to reach the Dao transformation stage. Wouldn't that be a joke? The Dao transformation stage was the minimum requirement for Song Xian and the other two. Fortunately, the talents of Song Xian and the other two were quite high, otherwise they would not have been accepted as disciples by Song Feng. At present, with the support of 9 Firmament Palace's vast resources, it was possible for them to break through to the Dao transformation stage or even the Dao King stage. Of course, that was all in the future. At this moment, the chief elder of Holy Maiden Peak had arrived. It was a beautiful middle-aged woman. Song Xian bowed politely to her and said, "Elder Chun Feng, sorry to trouble you," although Song Xian was now one of the 3 peak lords of Heavenly Sword Peak and had a higher status than Chun Feng. Chun Feng was a Dao King expert. He still had to be polite. Moreover, he still had to rely on her to break the seal at the bottom of the cliff and find Xiao Chun. Chen Fong nodded slightly when she heard Song Xian's words. However, just as she was about to take action, a middle-aged man appeared out of thin air in front of them. The man had yellow hair and an incomparably sturdy body. He had a rough appearance and a tyrannical aura that did not belong to a human. Clearly, he was not a human, but a beast king. This beast king was one of the 3 beast kings that stood on guard at the entrance of the gorge. He'd rushed over as soon as he sensed that human Dao kings had entered the mountain range. At this moment, he stood before Chen Fong and the beast king as he shouted coldly, "People from 9 Firmaments Palace? What business do you have here?" Judging from Song Xian's and Chen Fong's clothes, the beast king immediately recognized them. The monster beast kingdom in the all-beast mountain range and the 7 overlords of the heavenly Chun mainland naturally had dealings with each other. Moreover, both sides had reached a consensus. Otherwise, why would the monster beast kingdom obediently stay in the all-beast mountain range and not come out? Obviously, that was impossible. Both sides were not unfamiliar with each other. When she heard the beast king's question, Chen Fong frowned slightly and said, "A disciple of my 9 Firmaments Palace accidentally fell off the cliff. This king has specially come to rescue her. After saving her, we will naturally leave." Chen Fong did not expect the beast king of the monster beast kingdom to discover her whereabouts so quickly. Now that she had attracted a beast king before she even took action, Chen Fong felt somewhat helpless. After all, if the beast king did not agree, Chen Fong could not forcefully take action. If that happened, she would be breaking the agreement between the 2 races. When the time came, things would blow up. Hearing Chen Fong's words, Song Xian, who was beside her, also spoke up. "Back then, this old man's disciple fell off the cliff here. We are only here to rescue her. What does your rescue have to do with me? Don't forget the agreement between His Majesty the Beast King and your human overlord. You humans can enter the periphery of the all-beast mountain range, but you humans are not allowed to enter the core area. Otherwise, you will die." Scram! Not giving Song Xian any face, she directly interrupted him. It was absolutely impossible for humans to break the restrictions in the canyon. Normally, it might be possible, but now is the time for the cub trial. How could the Beast King agree to Song Xian's and Chen Fong's request? Seeing the Beast King directly refuse, Chen Fong looked at Song Xian, indicating for him to make the decision. However, when the 2 of them looked at each other, the Beast King directly took action. In his opinion, he had already asked the 2 humans to leave. Since the 2 of them refused to leave, he had no choice but to take action. The Beast King took the lead, and a terrifying aura instantly enveloped the area. Seeing this, Chen Fong's face sank. "You're going too far. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 107. The Beast King's overbearing attack naturally angered Chen Fong. As a Dao King realm expert, Chen Fong was a famous expert in the entire heavenly Qin continent. Although she looked like she was in her 30s, her true age was definitely a few hundred years old. The Beast King didn't even give her a chance to explain before attacking. Chen Fong naturally wouldn't agree. She gently pushed Song Xian over 10 miles away with a palm strike. Then, Chen Fong and the Beast King started fighting. The space where the 2 of them were fighting was directly sealed. This was a technique that could only be comprehended by those who had reached the Dao King realm. The power of the domain was released to form a domain of its own. It was an extremely powerful technique. If one's cultivation hadn't reached the Dao King realm, one wouldn't even have the chance to escape once trapped in the domain. When the domain was formed, the 2 Beast Kings fought fiercely. The terrifying shockwaves of the battle were sealed within the domain. Otherwise, if a trace of the shockwaves leaked out, everything around them would be destroyed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged over 100 blows. The battle between Beast Kings could be described as shocking. Bloodline superpower, rock scales. The Beast King was gradually angered. He took the initiative to use his bloodline superpower. His skin instantly turned into stone, as if he was covered with a layer of rock scales. Seeing the Beast King use his bloodline superpower, Chun Fong shouted coldly, "Saint Lotus Seal." Then, she slapped down with her hand. A huge lotus seal descended from the sky, fiercely suppressing the Beast King. The Saint Lotus Seal was an existence that surpassed the heaven-level martial skill. Its power was extremely great. Now that it was used by a Tao King realm expert, its power was even more indescribable. The fierce battle continued. After 2 hours, neither of them could do anything to the other. However, at this moment, the second Beast King arrived. When she saw the second Beast King arrive, Chun Fong's face became a little solemn. She wasn't afraid of a one-on-one battle. However, it would be a little difficult to fight 2 Beast Kings together. It was no joke. Fortunately, the second Beast King did not choose to attack directly. Instead, it stopped the 2 of them from fighting. It then looked at Chun Fong and said, "Chun Fong, we haven't seen each other for 100 years, right?" The Beast King was a young man with black hair and a slender figure. He looked gentle and refined, not like a demonic beast at all, but more like a scholar. For it to be able to call out Chun Fong's name, it was clear that the 2 of them knew each other. Hearing the Beast King's words, the expression on Chun Fong's face gradually eased. She said, "Lingxi, today I want to save someone. This person is very important to our 9 Firmaments Palace. Even the Lord Sovereign has a whole new level of respect for him." The young Beast King's name was Ling Shi. Hearing Chun Fong's words, Ling Shi exhorted for a moment, then nodded and replied, "All right, but the 2 of you can only move around at the bottom of the cliff. Now, the cubs of my Monster Beast Kingdom are training." Perhaps it was because they knew each other, but Ling Shi agreed. However, the 2 of them could only move around at the bottom of the cliff and were not allowed to enter the All-Beast Mountain Range. This was the final compromise. Hearing Ling Shi's words, Chun Fong nodded. She knew that this was Ling Shi's bottom line. Having obtained the Beast King's agreement, the next step was simple. There was no need for Chun Fong to break the seal herself. Under the lead of Ling Shi and the other Beast King, the 4 of them entered the bottom of the cliff and began their search. After searching for an entire day and night, Song Xian had searched every inch of the bottom of the cliff. However, they were still unable to find Xiao Chen's whereabouts. Not even his corpse could be found. After failing to find Xiao Chen for an entire day and night, Ling Shi ordered them to leave. "Chun Fong, it's almost time. Since we still haven't found him, he might have been eaten by other demonic beasts. Don't make things difficult for me. You all should leave." In this regard, Chun Fong almost believed that Xiao Chen should have been eaten by demonic beasts. Otherwise, it was impossible for there not to be a corpse left behind. She knew that Ling Shi had already given her enough face. If she continued to push her luck, she might attract more experts from the demonic beast kingdom. When that happened, things would become troublesome. Looking at Song Xian, Chun Fong sighed. Let's go back first." Although he was extremely unwilling, Song Xian could only nod in agreement. In the end, the 4 of them returned to the top of the cliff. Before leaving, Chun Fong bowed to Ling Shi. "Thank you. Come to Saint's Peak when you have time. Come to think of it, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Yes, we haven't seen each other for at least 100 years. When I'm done here, I'll go to Saint's Peak to look for you. At that time, I'll also visit my old friends," Ling Shi replied. "That's a promise. I'll wait for you," Chun Fong said. With that, Chun Fong left with Song Xian, while Ling Shi and the other demonic Beast King also disappeared. Unable to find Xiao Chen's whereabouts, Song Xian was extremely disappointed along the way. He was unwilling to believe that Xiao Chen was already dead, but the truth was right there. Unaware that Song Xian and Chun Fong had come to look for him, Xiao Chen's cultivation had finally broken through to the mystic profound stage after a day and night of closed-door cultivation. It could be said that it was a natural breakthrough, so there was no difficulty at all. After breaking through, Xiao Chen walked out of the cave. At the same time, Chun Ling had broken through to the mystic profound stage before Xiao Chen. He was currently lying on a tree trunk, leisurely basking in the sun. "Not bad. You're much faster than I thought," Chun Ling said with a smile when he saw Xiao Chun break through. Hearing this, Xiao Chun unhappily replied, "I'm still slower than you. I don't need to comprehend my state of mind to break through. I only need to accumulate spiritual energy. As long as I accumulate enough spiritual energy, I can break through all the way until I reach the pinnacle of my previous life. This way, my cultivation is naturally faster. But you're different. You need to comprehend and improve your state of mind. But even so, you're only 2 hours behind me, and I'm only 2 hours ahead of you. You still have the cheek to say that?" Chunling shook his head and laughed. As the reincarnation of an ancient almighty, Chunling's cultivation speed was very normal. It would be strange if it was slow. However, Xiao Qin was different. He relied on his own talent to catch up to Chunling. It was not an exaggeration to say that even in Chunling's previous life, he had never seen someone with talent like Xiao Chun. And Xiao Chun was only born in a small place like the heavenly Chun continent. He did not dare to imagine what Xiao Chun would be like if Xiao Chun was born in a better place. Besides, this guy is a monster. Anyway, no matter where he was born, he will eventually become the most dazzling person. The heavenly Chun continent is like this, and so is my hometown. Chunling sighed in his heart. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 108. Because of Xiao Chun, Chunling was reminded of his hometown. So many years had passed. His family, his father, and mother, were they doing well? It's already been 1,500 years. Chunling muttered softly as he looked at the sky with a dazed expression. It had been 1,500 years since he had fallen in the heavenly Chun continent. His heart was filled with emotions. He had died with his place. Xiao Chun came to Chunling's side and leaned lazily against the tree trunk. "What's wrong? Are you homesick?" "Yes, I wonder how my family is doing." Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chunling replied softly, "Don't worry, you will be able to go back one day. As long as you don't die, there will be hope. Even if you can't go back by yourself, I will accompany you." Xiao Chun said, "Do you know where my house is?" "I don't know." "Then will you go back with me?" "Since you can't go back by yourself, I naturally have to go with you. Haven't you heard of the saying, brothers work together to break gold? When the two of us have succeeded in our cultivation, I will go back with you." The two of them chatted casually. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chunling was slightly taken aback. He looked at Xiao Chun with a complicated gaze. At the same time, Little Green also ran over to join in the fun. She coiled around Xiao Chen's body and constantly growled as if saying that she wanted to go with him. Chunling silently looked at Xiao Chun. After a while, he revealed a smile and said, "Do you know why I fell in the heavenly Chun continent?" This was the first time Chunling took the initiative to reveal his own matters to Xiao Chun. This also showed that he trusted Xiao Chun completely and treated Xiao Chun as a brother. Therefore, there was nothing that he would hide from Xiao Chun. According to Chunling, back then, he was hunted down and fled all the way to the heavenly Chun continent. He had fled for too long and too far, which resulted in him not being able to contact his family. In the end, he was surrounded by them in the heavenly Chun continent. After a fierce battle, Chunling was no match for them and was eventually killed. However, before he died, he separated a strand of his consciousness. That was how he was reborn today. If not, he would have turned into ashes. Chunling told his story to Xiao Chun, but he still didn't say anything about his identity. Perhaps it was because he didn't want to say it. After all, with their current cultivation, it was impossible for Chunling and Xiao Chun to return to his family. Since Chunling did not say anything, Xiao Chun did not ask. He listened quietly. After a pause, Chunling continued, "Do you know why those people wanted to kill me?" "Why?" Xiao Chun asked. "Because of Little Green?" "That's right. Aren't you curious about its identity? Let me tell you. Little Green is from the dragon race. Moreover, it is a pure-blooded dragon. Its bloodline is extremely pure. Even among the dragon race, it belongs to the top bloodline. Back then, I obtained the unborn Little Green by chance and escaped with it. Those people who chased after me were also because of Little Green, an unborn baby dragon. If I can obtain it and carefully nurture it after it hatches, it will definitely become a peerless divine dragon in the future. Any force that obtains it will be like a guardian deity. Little Green was from the dragon race, and its bloodline was extremely pure. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was stunned. He didn't expect this little one to be a true dragon. In the heavenly Chun continent, dragons were simply legendary existences. Not to mention true dragons, there weren't even flood dragons. Chunling was shocked. He looked at Little Green with a myriad of emotions. If it weren't for Little Green, he wouldn't have fallen in the heavenly Qin continent. Listening to the conversation between the two, Little Qing had a helpless look on its face. It seemed to have understood something. After telling Xiao Qin the truth, Chunling also told him how to escape. After all, the two of them were in the Thousand Beast Mountain range. As humans, it was basically impossible to leave the Thousand Beast Mountain range safely. But with Little Green around, it would be different. According to Chunling, Little Green's bloodline was enough to suppress any monster in the heavenly Qin continent. However, Little Green's cultivation was still too low. But even so, if Little Green were to negotiate with the king of monster beasts, he believed that the king of monster beasts would let the two of them go. After all, the Dragon Clan was a dominating existence in the world of monsters. There were only a few clans that could be compared to them. If a pure-blooded Dragon Clan was present, no monster would go against them. Many monsters were even willing to submit to the Dragon Clan. This was the Dragon Clan's innate emperor's aura. It was also because of this that many human emperors liked to use the Dragon Clan as a symbol of the royal family's prestige. Little Green was the bargaining chip for Xiao Chun and Chunling to leave the Thousand Beast Mountain range safely. Of course, all of this could only be confirmed after meeting the king of monster beasts. However, it seemed that there was no other way. Xiao Chun didn't reject Chunling's idea. This was indeed the best way. After discussing for a while, the two of them naturally told Little Green how to negotiate with the king of monster beasts. Little Green nodded its head in response to their advice. It knew that this wasn't a joke, so Little Green listened very seriously. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Soon, the 1-month-long beast cub trials had ended. The entire valley opened up once again. At the same time, the 3 beast kings guarding the entrance entered the valley at the same time to check on the casualties of this trial. Along the way, the 3 beast kings found it strange that there seemed to be very few deaths in this trial. Less than 1/5 of the total number of cubs. In other words, these cubs basically didn't go on a killing spree during this 1 month. The 3 beast kings frowned slightly. Including Ling Si, the 3 beast kings felt that something was amiss. When they arrived before Xiao Chun, Chunling, Little Green, and the cubs, the 3 beast kings were stunned. What's going on? 2 humans had sneaked into the beast cub trials, and the cubs were actually with them. In an instant, the 3 beast kings were somewhat puzzled. One of the beast kings even yelled angrily, "Humans, how did you sneak in? You're courting death." They didn't know how Xiao Chun and Chunling managed to sneak in, but it wasn't important. Since the humans had entered the depths of the Thousand Beast Mountain range, they should be killed immediately. This was the rule of the Monster Kingdom. Therefore, the Beast King immediately launched a palm strike, intending to kill Xiao Chun and Chunling. The other 2 Beast Kings didn't stop the Beast King from killing the humans. But at this moment, Xiao Chun yelled softly, "Little Green." Chapter 109. In the face of the 3 Beast Kings, Xiao Chun didn't panic in the slightest. They had already come up with a plan beforehand. Therefore, as soon as Xiao Chun let out a soft cry, Little Qing immediately released an extremely pure dragon's prestige. This was the prestige that belonged to the dragon race. Even though it was still weak on Little Qing, the purity of it left the 3 Beast Kings flabbergasted. As Beast Kings, they were naturally knowledgeable and knew about the dragon race from some records in the country of monsters. Now that they had personally experienced the dragon's prestige, even though they weren't directly suppressed by Little Qing's bloodline power due to their cultivation realms, The fear that came from the depths of their souls was so real. This is the dragon race's bloodline. Dragon. Gazing at little Ching, who resembled a little green snake, one of the beast kings stared blankly at little Ching. The dragon race was like an emperor in the world of monsters. Any true dragon was an absolute emperor above all beasts. In a place where the dragon race existed, all beasts would submit to the dragon race. This wasn't a joke, as it truly existed. The three beast kings instantly forgot about Xiao Chun and Chun Ling. They only had eyes for little Ching now. After a few moments of astonishment, the three beast kings returned to their senses. Then, Spirit Rhino spoke first. Hurry up and inform Sir Beast Emperor about this. The appearance of the dragon race in the All-Beast Mountain Range was definitely a huge matter for the country of monsters. Upon hearing Spirit Rhino's words, one of the Beast Kings vanished on the spot while the other two Beast Kings continued to look at little Ching in reverence. This had nothing to do with cultivation realms or strength. It was completely innate reverence. One had to know that among the beast race, bloodline was above everything and one's status was determined from birth. The dragon race was born as an emperor and was destined to rule over all beasts. They didn't know how to treat this true dragon. After all, this was the first time Spirit Rhino and the other beast kings had met a dragon. They could only wait for the beast emperor to make the decision. They didn't have to wait for long, at most 15 minutes, before the three beast emperors appeared one after another. A middle-aged man, a beautiful woman, and a young man. These three people were the overlord of the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range, the Beast Emperor. The three Beast Emperors shifted their attention to little Ching immediately. After a few moments, the middle-aged man exclaimed in astonishment, "True dragon, it's really the dragon race." The dragon race has actually arrived in the All-Beast Mountain Range. The middle-aged man who spoke was the Lion King, one of the three Beast Kings. He was also the father of the Mad Lion Cub. As a Beast King, he was actually so excited at this moment. It could be seen how much shock a true dragon brought to them. As soon as the Lion Emperor finished speaking, the beautiful woman continued, "The dragon clan has descended. Does this mean that there is finally hope for our monster beast nation to return to our homeland?" The woman was a spirit emperor among the three beast emperors. Her original body was a nine-tailed fox, and her bloodline was also extremely noble. As for the last young man, he was the tiger emperor, one of the three emperors. His original body was a thunder tiger, and his bloodline was not any weaker than the spirit emperor and the lion emperor. However, he did not say anything, and his eyes were fixed on little Ching. The arrival of the three beast emperors was followed by the arrival of many experts from the Monster Beast Nation. In the entire Monster Beast Nation, the three beast emperors were fully deserving of the title of overlords. Their strength was comparable to the 7 human rulers. They controlled the entire Monster Beast Nation. Under the three of them were 18 beast sovereigns, whose strength was equivalent to a human Dao sovereign. Below the 18 beast sovereigns were 68 beast kings, and below them were countless level 8 and level 7 monsters. Because of the appearance of the true dragon, almost all the experts of the Monster Beast Nation had rushed over. In less than half an hour, the entire training valley was filled with countless monsters. At the forefront were the three beast emperors, followed by the 18 beast sovereigns, and then the 68 beast kings. After them were the level 8 and level 7 monsters. As for the monsters below them, they could not even squeeze into the valley. All the monsters had gathered here. In the end, with the three beast emperors taking the lead, all the monsters bowed and knelt down in front of little Ching. Looking at the scene in front of him, Xiao Chun was speechless. It seemed that he had underestimated the significance of the dragon clan to the monsters. When they saw little Ching, even the three beast emperors were so respectful. After a series of respectful bows, the three beast emperors finally noticed Xiao Chun and Chun Ling beside little Ching. They did not expect that there would be 2 humans here. Immediately, the Lion Emperor coldly shouted, "2 humans? Why are humans here? Kill them for me." Humans were not allowed to enter the depths of the 1,000 Beast Mountain Range. This was the agreement between the 3 Beast Emperors and the Supremes. Just as the Lion Emperor gave the order to kill Xiao Chun and Chun Ling, little Ching let out an angry roar. Upon hearing Little Qing's angry roar, the Lion Emperor was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect these two humans to be Little Qing's friends. Besides, Little Qing had clearly stated that anyone who dared to touch these two humans would be her enemy. The Lion Emperor was put in a difficult position when a true dragon defended two humans. Seizing this opportunity, Shao Chun stepped forward and spoke to the three Beast Emperors. "Sir Beast Emperors, Little Qing is our friend, and we were the ones who brought her here. We didn't mean to barge into the 1,000 Beast Mountain Range. Everything was done because we had no choice." Shao Chun told the three Beast Emperors about how the three of them were hunted down, how they had no choice but to jump off a cliff, and how they were washed into this valley by the river. After hearing Shao Chun's story, the three Beast Emperors looked at each other. Then, the beautiful and charming Spirit Emperor slowly walked up to Shao Chun with a charming smile on her face. "Little human, in this case, you're indeed innocent. Since that's the case, you can leave now. I'll get someone to send you out of the 1,000 Beast Mountain Range, since they didn't mean to and Little Qing was protecting them. There was no harm in sending them out." Upon hearing the Spirit Queen's words, Shao Chun bowed and was about to leave with Little Qing. But at this moment, the Lion Emperor and Tiger Emperor spoke at the same time. "Your Highness True Dragon, please wait." Facing Little Qing's departure, the three Beast Emperors appeared to be extremely nervous. Upon hearing their words, Shao Chun and Chen Ling exchanged looks and guessed what was going on. Looking at the three Beast Emperors, it seemed like they didn't want Little Qing to leave. Instead, they wanted Little Qing to stay in the kingdom of demonic beasts. To be honest, Shao Chun and Chen Ling were worried about Little Qing. Although the three Beast Emperors didn't seem like they would harm Little Qing, the three of them had been together for a long time and were as close as brothers. It was impossible for them to leave Little Qing in the kingdom of demonic beasts. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 110. The three Beast Emperors did not want to let Little Qing leave. Under the obstruction of the three Beast Emperors, Shao Chun and the others arrived at the Kingdom of Monsters. This was a kingdom built by the Beast Clan in the 1,000 Beast Mountain Range. There was a city, but it was not big. After all, only the transformed monster beasts could live in the city. Those who did not could only live in the Endless Mountain Range. Arriving at the huge palace in the center of the city, Shao Chun and Chen Ling stood in the middle of the palace. The Lion Emperor and the other two Beast Emperors sat on the main seats. As for Little Qing, she naturally sat with them. Looking at Shao Chun and Chen Ling, Ling Huang spoke first. "We understand your relationship with His Majesty the True Dragon. However, we hope that His Majesty the True Dragon can stay in the Kingdom of Monsters. His Majesty the True Dragon is a noble member of the Dragon Clan. In the entire Tianshan continent, only the Kingdom of Monsters can provide His Majesty with the best cultivation environment. If His Majesty the True Dragon follows you to the human world, not only will it not benefit His Majesty the True Dragon, it may even lead to a fatal disaster. To the Beast Clan, His Majesty the True Dragon is a supreme existence. However, to the human experts, His Majesty the True Dragon is a treasure. Therefore, once the human experts know His Majesty the True Dragon's identity, I believe that many will do whatever it takes to kill you. However, do you have the strength to protect His Majesty the True Dragon? Therefore, His Majesty the True Dragon staying in the Kingdom of Monsters is beneficial to both you and His Majesty. Finally, I will not hide it from you. His Majesty the True Dragon is our hope to return to our homeland. Therefore, we must ensure that His Majesty the True Dragon can grow up safely." Ling Huang spoke patiently for Little Qing's sake. If not, she would not have wasted her breath. She would have directly thrown Shao Chun and Chen Ling out of the 1,000 Beast Mountain Range. She might have even killed them. It was because of Little Qing's protection that Ling Huang was so polite to Shao Chun and Chen Ling. She also patiently explained their intentions. They wanted Little Qing to stay, and the ultimate goal of the three Beast Emperors was to use Little Qing to return to their homeland. Shao Chun did not know what the Spirit Emperor's homeland was, but Chen Ling knew. Indeed, Although the Spirit Emperor and the others were Beast Emperors, they were unable to return to their homeland by themselves because they could not open the door to their homeland. Only Shao Qing, who had the bloodline of the Dragon Clan, could open the door to their homeland. The Soul Emperor did not rush them after he spoke. Instead, he gave Shao Chun and the Soul Emperor time to think. After hearing his words, Shao Chun also began to ponder in his mind. Now that he knew Shao Qing's identity, it was indeed foolish to bring a dragon around. Even the 7 rulers would be tempted by a true dragon. Once Shao Qing's identity was exposed, it wouldn't be the same as this time. At that time, all the human experts in the heavenly Chung continent would hunt him down. Judging from the current situation, only the Demon Beast Empire had the ability to protect Lil Qing. Secondly, Shao Qing was from the Dragon Clan and was currently in the growth stage. If he stayed by his side, he would not be able to help him much. If he stayed in the Monster Beast Empire, with the 3 Beast Emperor's abilities, he would be of great help to Shao Qing's growth. Combining the above 2 aspects, as well as his own situation, the Spirit Emperor's words were not without reason. Staying in the Monster Beast Empire was indeed the best choice for Shao Qing. However, everything depended on Shao Qing. After bowing to the 3 Beast Emperors, Shao Chun calmly said, "Your Majesty, this junior understands the reasoning behind this. However, I think that Shao Qing's fate should not be decided by us. Everything depends on him. If Shao Qing is willing to stay in the Monster Beast Empire, then Chun Ling and I will not stop him. Of course, if Shao Qing is unwilling, then even if it means striking a stone with an egg, us 2 brothers will not agree to the 3 Beast Emperors' request." The 3 Beast Emperors had no intention of harming Shao Qing. In fact, they were very good to Shao Qing. However, Shao Chun still wanted Shao Qing to decide whether to stay or leave. Hearing Shao Chen's words, the Tiger Emperor smiled and said, "Then it will be up to His Majesty the True Dragon to decide." "All right. In that case, the 2 of you can stay in the Monster Beast Empire for a few days. Since you are His Majesty the True Dragon's friends, the Monster Beast Empire will naturally not treat you unfairly. You can stay here and relax for a few days." The 3 of them stayed together in the kingdom of demonic beasts. That night, the 3 of them sat in a circle in the courtyard and drank wine. The wine was sent by the 3 Beast Emperors. It was said that they had obtained good wine from the human world. It was very good. As they drank, Shao Chun asked Chun Ling, "Chun Ling, do you want Shao Qing to stay?" Although he had already made up his mind, Shao Chun was still a little conflicted. Shao Qing had been by his side since the 100 Spirits graveyard. Now that they were going to part, Shao Chun was still a little reluctant. Hearing Shao Chen's words, Shao Qing also looked at Chun Ling, as if waiting for his answer. Facing the gaze of a human and a dragon, Chun Ling took a sip of wine and said slowly, "Tell the truth? Nonsense. If it's a lie, I'm asking you." Shao Chun said unhappily, "If it were me, I would let Shao Qing stay here, because whether it's you or me, it won't do Shao Qing any good. It might even lead to a fatal disaster for the 2 of us. Moreover, even if Shao Qing chooses to stay, it doesn't mean that we won't be able to meet in the future. As long as we want to, we can meet. So, why not let Shao Qing stay in a place that's more conducive to his growth?" Chun Ling said slowly. Chun Ling was in favor of Shao Chun staying in the Monster Kingdom. Hearing this, Shao Chun nodded sadly. He knew the reason, but he found it hard to accept at the moment. Seeing Shao Chun's reluctance, Chun Ling smiled and said, "Shao Chun, a temporary separation doesn't mean anything. You have to know that the world is very big. Do you want Shao Qing to become a true divine dragon, so that the 3 of US brothers can roam this vast world together? Or do you want Shao Qing to stay by your side forever and waste his dragon bloodline?" Chun Ling persuaded. In response, Shao Chun was silent for a while. Then he suddenly raised his head and looked at Chun Ling and Shao Qing, saying, "Why don't we become sworn brothers of the opposite sex? This way, even if we are separated in the future, we can still think of each other. The 3 of us will always be together, no matter where we are. How about it?" Shao Chun suggested becoming sworn brothers. Hearing this, Chunling was slightly taken aback, while Xiaoqing immediately nodded in agreement. Their gazes were fixed on Chunling, waiting for his answer. Facing Xiaochun and Xiaoqing's gazes, Chunling finished the wine in his bowl in one gulp. His heart was filled with complicated thoughts. Brothers? Chapter 111. Xiao Chun suggested that the three of them become sworn brothers. Regarding the word brother, Chunling's heart was filled with emotions. Back then, the people who tried to kill him were brought by his brothers. It could be said that in his previous life, Chunling died in the hands of his brothers. As a result, Chunling found it hard to believe in the word brother. Unaware that Chunling had been betrayed by his brothers, Xiao Chun and Little Green looked at Chunling expectantly, waiting for his answer. After experiencing a series of life and death situations, the three of them could be said to have a brotherly relationship. Facing Xiao Chun and Little Green's gazes, Chunling smiled helplessly and thought to himself, "Sigh, I still can't let go of you too. Then I'll believe in you one more time. If the result is still the same, then I can only blame the heavens. Okay, then let's become sworn brothers. But before that, there's one more thing that needs to be done. It's about Little Green." Chunling nodded in agreement. After being betrayed by his brothers and dying in the hands of his brothers, Chunling no longer believed in the word brother. However, facing Xiao Chun and Little Green, he was unwilling, or rather, unable to let go of the feelings between the three of them. In the end, Chunling chose to believe in them one more time, hoping that the result would be different. With the decision made, Xiao Chun and the other two took the initiative to meet the three Beast Emperors the next day. Furthermore, Xiao Chun clearly told the three Beast Emperors that Little Green was willing to stay in the country of monsters. However, there was a condition, and that was that they could not stop the three of them from meeting in the future. Naturally, the three Beast Emperors would not reject Xiao Chun's condition. In fact, to them, this was not a condition at all. It was just a meeting, so what was the big deal? They agreed to Xiao Chun's condition without hesitation. Then, Chunling spoke. "Your Majesties, I have a medicinal bath here. If Little Green uses it, it can stimulate the dragon bloodline in her body as quickly as possible. At least 30% of her bloodline can be awakened in a short period of time. I wonder if you three are interested?" The three Beast Emperors were clearly stunned when they heard Chunling's words. If they could quickly stimulate Xiaoqing's Dragon Clan bloodline, it would naturally be a good thing for them. The Lion Emperor immediately asked in a deep voice, "What medicinal bath? What materials do you need? Tell me." In response to the Lion King's question, Chunling told him the name of the medicinal bath and the required ingredients. According to Chunling, the medicinal bath was called the Dragon Transformation Liquid and was only effective for dragon whelps. As everyone knew, the bloodline of demonic beasts had not been activated when they were just born. They could only be activated slowly as they continued to grow. The Dragon Transformation Liquid was a secret technique of the Dragon Clan. It was able to activate the bloodline of a young dragon to the greatest extent in the shortest amount of time, allowing it to grow faster. However, although the effect of the Dragonization Liquid was heaven-defying, it was only effective for the Dragon Clan. Moreover, the required materials were extremely precious. After Chunling reported the required materials, even the three Beast Kings were stunned. A total of 680 heavenly treasures, and half of them were things that they had never even heard of before. Obviously, these were things that did not exist in the heavenly Chun continent or had already gone extinct. It was impossible to gather all these materials. In this regard, Chunling had obviously thought of this and had prepared a simplified version of the Dragon Transformation Liquid beforehand. The simplified version of the Dragonization Liquid did indeed require a lot less resources, but it was still extremely precious. However, the three Beast Emperors were still able to find a way to gather it. However, the thing that troubled the three of them the most was that aside from these natural treasures, they also needed 3 drops of blood essence from each of them. The three Beast Emperors might be able to gather the materials, but the 3 drops of blood essence One had to know that blood essence was extremely precious, and it would take a long time to recover from losing a single drop. And now, Chunling asked for 3 drops, and 3 drops from each of the 3 Beast Kings. In an instant, the 3 Beast Kings were somewhat hesitant. Forcefully forcing out 3 drops of blood essence would cause significant damage to them, and it would be difficult for them to recover in a short period of time. Seeing that the 3 Beast Emperors were in a difficult position, Chunling had already expected this, and said unhurriedly, "Your Majesty, Beast Kings, you don't need to be conflicted. I can guarantee the effects of the dragon transformation liquid. Besides, even though you have lost 3 drops of blood essence, when Little Blue awakens her bloodline, I can get her to give you some ordinary blood essence from the dragon race. Think about it. If your Majesty, Beast Kings can obtain the power of the dragon race's bloodline, the benefits will be incomparable to 3 drops of blood essence, right?" Exchanging one's blood essence for ordinary blood essence seemed like a losing trade. However, the 3 Beast Kings were exchanging ordinary blood essence from the dragon race, which was definitely a great deal. Not to mention ordinary blood essence from the dragon race. Even a drop of saliva from the dragon race was regarded as a peerless treasure by the world. It was known as the dragon saliva. As expected, after hearing Chunling's words, the 3 Beast Kings' expressions changed. Their eyes revealed a hint of excitement, and they immediately nodded in agreement. Even though 3 drops of blood essence were precious, it was not worth mentioning when compared to the blood essence of a true dragon. Immediately, he ordered the elites of the Monster Beast Kingdom to search for the ingredients needed for the dragon transformation liquid, and promised that they would gather them within half a month. After which, Xiao Chun and the other 2 returned to their residences to rest. After returning to their residences, Xiao Chun and Little Blue did not know what Chunling was up to. They looked at Chunling, and Xiao Chun suspiciously asked, "Is the dragon transformation liquid you speak of real?" "Of course it's real. As long as there is the dragon transformation liquid, Little Blue's bloodline power will be able to awaken. At that time, even though it will not be able to transform, it should not have a problem speaking the human language. Furthermore, after its bloodline awakens, Little Blue's growth rate will be much faster. There are only benefits and no disadvantages for it." Chunling replied, "If that's the case, then why did you ask Little Blue to give its blood essence to the 3 Beast Kings?" Xiao Chen asked, "What's wrong with that? Little Blue only gave ordinary blood essence, while the 3 Beast Kings gave their blood essence. How can the 2 be compared? Giving them some ordinary blood essence won't harm Little Blue at all. If I didn't do this, would the 3 Beast Kings agree? Furthermore, let me tell you, originally, the dragon transformation liquid only required 1 drop of their blood essence each. The extra 6 drops were prepared for the 2 of us." After explaining to Xiao Chun, Chunling said mysteriously, "Originally, Little Blue only needed 3 drops of the 9 Beast Kings' blood essence, while the remaining 6 drops were prepared by Chunling for himself and Xiao Chun. In other words, using this opportunity, Chunling had taken advantage of the 3 Beast Kings. Please collect, recommend, reward. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.